stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now for the Texas flag.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. We'll get to our welcomes and all that in just a second, but let's go ahead and go to our action items. Ms. Toomey, if you could read those action items to us in the form of a motion.
I move to approve hold on. Make sure I'm at the right ones. Yes. I move to approve the CH listing of vendors and estimated annual cost for contract awards and renewals for the purchase of goods, professional services, and/or non-construction services that are estimated to exceed $50,000 in the aggregate or $25,000 individually for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, 7-0 with Ms. Morrison. All right, and 3B?
I move to approve participation in TEA's Operation Connectivity Bulk Order Program, transfer funds as indicated in this item, and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute all agreements and take all actions necessary for the same, including entering into an interlocal agreement with the Region 4 Education Service Center and any and all vendor agreements necessary for the program.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Also 7-0. Now we're going to move into our information items, and the way this is going to work, the board is going to discuss, ask questions of the administration, discuss the various options that we've been looking at. Once the board is through with their discussion, we will open it up for public comment. We will start with those that are here in the room, face to face. After that, we will move to those that are in the waiting room on Zoom. Once all public comment is finished, we will come back as an action item, and the board will vote to approve the start date and the calendar as we move forward. Okay, so that's how things will go. I want to remind everyone, let's keep the decorum in the room, very polite. But you're free to give your opinion, and we want you to do that, and feel free to do so. So I've got a prepared statement. Normally I wing it, but I think this is important enough that I put some thought into this, and so if you'll bear with me for just 1 second. Good evening and welcome back to the boardroom. I also want to welcome back our fantastic staff and welcome all of our new and returning family. Tonight we are facing new challenges in Humble ISD. Challenges are nothing new for our community. It seems the last few years we can't get through a complete school year without challenges. Who would have thought when we left for spring break, our kids would not see the inside of a classroom for roughly 6 months? Yet tonight, here we are, ready to begin a new school year, balancing the needs of students and their families with the health and safety risks that are in our community. We, the board, and Dr. Fagan have received hundreds of emails, phone calls over the past few weeks. Some have been very cordial, some not so much. Some want all kids in school on day one. Some don't feel we should continue in-person instruction until much later. Any decision that is made tonight will not be met with unanimous consent within the community. We understand that, but now is not the time for divisiveness. This is not the way our community handles itself. We are a strong community with strong feelings. We are resilient. We persevere through adversity. I implore each one of you watching in attendance or via Zoom to please follow with patience and an open heart and open mind. Decisions of this magnitude should never be on a whim and definitely should not be made in a political nature. We are dealing with our kids, 44,437 of them at last count. Several board members up here have children or grandchildren enrolled in Humble ISD. I'm one of them. I have a daughter and a grandson, both attending school next week. To say they are my pride and joy would be an understatement. Our staff members, in my opinion, are the best in public education. We want them excited about the new school year and all it has to offer. Dr. Fagan and her team have been working all summer, as most of our teachers have, to get ready for a blended approach to learning, giving families the ability to choose between online only, in-person only, or online plus UIL. We know the past few weeks have been filled with many emotions, from happy to sad to confusion and even fear. Tonight, hopefully we can add some clarity so we can all get back to what we do best: educate kids, making a difference in our community. Any decision that we make must be based on medical data and scientific research. I am hesitant to talk statistics because the numbers are ever changing, and sometimes those conversations come off dismissive of the virus and the pandemic. We do not want to diminish the severity of the virus, but I think there is some current and relevant data to add some perspective. In Harris County, the estimated population is 4.713 million residents. According to the Harris County Public Health website, there are currently 31,183 active cases, which is 0.66% of the population. From the Texas Department of Health website, the 6 zip codes that make up Humble ISD currently has an active positive case rate of just shy of 1%. As of yesterday, the Texas Medical Center was reporting 3,170 vacant beds, which was up week over week. Also, according to their website, daily hospitalization rates have consistently trended downward. Again, not minimizing the virus, just adding some perspective. Many families have been affected by this terrible illness. In Harris County, 760 individuals lost their battle to this dreadful virus. So how should we proceed? Is the virus going away? Will we have a vaccine in the near future? What is the damage to children and adolescent development if we don't reopen schools? Is it safe to reopen? Or are we putting lives at risk? I can give you my opinions, we all can, but what does science and the health community say? According to the CDC, school closure disrupts the delivery of critical services such as meal programs, social, physical, behavioral, and mental health. It also adds additional economic and psychological stress on families. They go on to say schools play a critical role, and as such makes them a priority for opening and remaining open, enabling students to receive both academic instruction and support as well as critical services. When opening schools, the health, safety, and well-being of students, teachers, other school staff, their families, and the community should be considered. When we look at their data, children under 10 continue to appear as low risk, while ages 10 through 17 may be more likely to be infected but do not appear to be at a higher risk of developing severe illness. Evidence from other studies in other countries, while early and raw, show students are not as likely to transmit the virus to other students compared to household contacts. I know there are all sorts of articles, opinions, data sets, etc. We could debate the validity of each set and would come away from tonight more confused than what we started. I think we all could agree that in-person education is by far the best for kids, but we also understand the apprehension this virus brings to our community. I personally believe we should begin in-person instruction as soon as possible. So I am prepared tonight to present a compromise when we get ready to vote as an action item. So we get the doors open for 2021 school year. I would like for us to start online August the 11th, begin in-person instruction on Monday, August 17th for pre-K through 5, and the AB schedule for all secondary students for those who choose in person. All self-contained special ed students will be welcome on campus every day. This will give our in-person learners the opportunity to get acquainted and comfortable with the online portal and allow our teachers the extra time they have requested to prepare for the transition. On October 12th, if all is well, 8 weeks of transition is up, and all pre-K 8 students who selected in person will be on campus every day. High schools will remain on the AB schedule. If we get a vaccine or a 5% spread matrix, we will transition to 100% in person for all who selected in person. That is my what I'm prepared to do tonight, but I will now open it up for discussion with my fellow board members. Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Sitton. I don't have much. What I do have is that we did get a lot of information, letters, emails, calls, texts from folks, and about 98% of that was very helpful. It was on all sides, and I really appreciate it, and I read everything. About 2% of it is what you can imagine is awful, but that's comes with the job, I guess. What I wanted to make clear is that the decision that's going to be made tonight is a board decision, period. Dr. Fagan, it's not her decision whether or not we open. I got a lot of comments that would said, well, this is Dr. Fagan's doing this, Dr. Fagan's doing that. No. Dr. Fagan's doing what we asked her to do, effectively told her to do. Keep the options open so we as a board can make a decision based upon the most recent data, period. That's what we asked her to do, and that's what she did. This last week, I asked her, okay, now that we have some data and we're going to have a meeting soon to make a decision, I want some additional options for some soft openings so we can transition into in-person education. And those are some of the things I think we're going to talk about tonight. So, and I appreciate that, Dr. Fagan, for you doing that work. I also wanted to respond to some of the stuff that we've gotten that, like the administration, Dr. Fagan's team has not worked. I've been up here in a board position for 14 years. The administration has never worked remotely as hard as they did this summer, getting together plans, putting up stuff like this on all of our campuses, getting ready. It's the amount of work that they've done is incredible, and to even suggest the opposite in some of the notes and letters and other things that we've gotten, it's just ludicrous. Now, people have also suggested that we've planned and we've decided that is not true either. We have not talked as a board about what we're going to do, and this is going to be a long meeting because we are going to have to debate and discuss what's going to ultimately be voted on. And I don't know what we're going to do. People have asked me, so what's going to happen? What are we going to, I have no idea what the outcome is going to be, and we'll find out. You'll learn when I do tonight. But that's what I have, Mr. President, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Who's next? Ms. Toomey.
So thank you all for coming tonight. One thing that is very clear is that we have a district, we have an amazing district full of wonderful, wonderful teachers, wonderful administrators, wonderful parents, wonderful children that are all actively engaged in the educational process, and that is wonderful to see. So from the beginning of the shutdown of our society back in March, we operated under the principle that we were willing to shut some things down for the sake of the greater good. And then there were some things that were essential services that needed to remain open during the pandemic. I didn't always understand why things were categorized the way they were, but as a community, we came together, we followed the rules, we put in the work for the effort to flatten the curve. Obviously, since reopening, we've had some changes in that. But what we learned from our time in lockdown is that mitigation techniques do work for what they were supposed to do, and that is to flatten the curve, to reduce the negative impacts on our healthcare community. So tonight, I have absolutely no intention to advocate for a return to normal. But instead, I think that as a board, we need to focus on developing a new normal. A new normal where high quality education of all students is considered essential. And obviously, as a side note, as a society, I think that we need to be thinking more broadly about how we reach this new normal in our everyday life, where people can earn a living, people can come together and choose to gather and worship, and where physical distancing does not mean social isolation. So what is our new normal? What mitigation techniques can we put into place? Physical distancing obviously is key. Hand washing. Creating and changing the culture that we have had in this country for a long time. We need to make it the norm to, if you are sick, you stay home. And it does not matter if you are sick with COVID or anything else. If you're sick, stay home. My sister is an emergency room physician battling on the front lines of COVID. One of the things that she mentioned to me was that when the lockdown happened, a really bad flu season stopped. It just stopped. So we have a responsibility as a school district, as a society, to stop more than just COVID. This is our chance to create that new normal in our society. Physical distancing, hand washing, culture, masking when physical distancing isn't possible, and then cautiously phasing in activities, including our schools. So I am very grateful. I thank you, Mr. Sitton, for your initial proposal. I think that it's a great starting point. I think there might be a couple things that we might want to talk back and forth on that maybe we can talk about some modifications, but I just kind of wanted to set the overall tone that from where I'm coming from, I do not want to advocate for a return to normal, but just set a new normal going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toomey. Ms. Lamont Dixon.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to address something that you see a lot online and a lot of our emails, that we're not listening to health experts. I just want to address that because, I know for myself, and I truly believe in my heart for all of my board colleagues, that is not true. I mean, personally, I have read CDC guidelines. I have extensively researched the World Health Organization, looked at the data that has been presented to us from the state and also from the county. I've talked to pediatricians, have read information from the American Academy of Pediatrics, talked to my own personal internist, other board members throughout the state. What does it look like in their districts? Healthcare officials, I read the parent survey results, the teacher survey results, read every single parent email, teacher email, even read everything on social media. Also talked to a little posse of friends of mine in Sweden because, they never closed and they are reopening and they don't have an online option. But I just want to speak to that a little bit because I think that some people are feeling as if we are not listening, and I think that's not true. I mean, for me personally, I have done extensive research. I've spent a lot of time in thought and in prayer over this decision, and really thinking about what's best for our teachers and students. For me, it is all about the teachers and students that are out there being educated and educating even my two children who are in high school. But of course, my heart does go out to those who have genuine fears or who have lost loved ones. I've had family members, extended family members who have had COVID. I know 2 people very well who have passed away from COVID. So this is not about politics. It is not about us just doing whatever we want to do. I mean, I really do think that we have dug deep. We have really looked at who we are as people, what's important for our district. And I think every district is very, very different. So we can't always do what other districts are doing. We have to really focus on what is best for the students in our district. I want to say I appreciate all of the feedback as we approach, for me, the most difficult decision I think I will ever make as a school board member. I'm not going to continue right now because I think when we have our discussion on the action item, I do have a lot of questions and comments that I would like to make at that time. But I just wanted to express that we have done our due diligence. We have done our research. So please find comfort in that, no matter where we end up on this decision. And I do appreciate you, President Sitton. I do have some differences of opinion on your proposal, but similar lines, but some differences that I would like to see. And that's all I have, but thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morrison.
Good evening. I wish I were there, but I, like many of you, taking care of a granddaughter, and I want to ditto Ms. Lamont Dixon's thoughts on a lot of things. I want all of our parents and our constituents to understand that this board really has read as much as possible. I mean, I'm like Ms. Dixon, I have read so much lately, and I have so many friends that have children that are in the healthcare industry and I have visited with them lengthy. In my case, I talked to a cardiologist. I mean, because I'm one of those lucky people, I'm a little older than the rest of these folks on this board. But there's a lot to be said about understanding and reading and researching and making sure. But the one thing I do know that everyone on this board cares for every student in the Umbel district. And Dr. Fagan and her staff, I have never in all my days seen how hard they have worked to make sure that we do have the very best for our students. And I know every parent, the many, many, many emails we have read, each and every one have their concerns, and they're valid concerns. There's concerns of wanting to get the children back in school. I know as my granddaughter tonight, she is actively involved now because she's in volleyball and she's having to wear a mask. But you know what? She's at least getting to see her fellow volleyball players. And so I know, but we have to do things differently. And to tag on what Miss Toomey said, we have to create a new normal. The old normal is past tense. And I too appreciate Mr. Sitton for bringing up what we call compromise. I think there shall be compromise because I think we have to look at everything, and we've done so much in the sense of understanding what all is going on, and we don't even, to this day, everything changes. I mean, it changes every minute, every hour of the day. But know that we are trying very desperately to do the very best for our children. I know as a former elementary administrator, I can't even imagine a principal right now and all the thoughts and all the things that are running through their mind. And every teacher in this district, I know some are very concerned, some are very excited about coming back. And we want to do the very best, and we want to make the very best decision. And I'm going to stop at that because I too have questions when the time comes. So I will forego any more comments at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Mr. Engelage.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be very brief. I know we have a long night. It's nice to be back in this boardroom. I haven't been back here since, let's see, May of 2017. So this looks a lot different. A lot of you look different because I can't see your face, but things have changed a little bit since May of 2017. But it is nice to be back. I wish I had a nickel for every person that said, boy, did you get back on the board at a fun time. And it's been a very interesting last few months, and certainly tonight is the culmination of that. But I just want everyone to know that this board, these folks that I work with, and the superintendent, are just an amazing group of people. And her staff that she's put together, I'm just blown away. I've kind of intentionally stayed away from things for the last 3 years, so I'm kind of back up to speed, and we've got a great staff here, so I'm excited to get to work with them. I think that's all I'm going to say, Mr. President. We'll talk more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingelagi. Mr. Scarfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. There's no debate that face-to-face is the best modality to deliver instruction. I don't think you'd find anybody who would argue otherwise. And also, no debate, at least in my mind, that online instruction isn't adequate, doesn't adequately service our economically disadvantaged students or our SPED students, our special education students. And as a full disclaimer, one of my grandsons is a special ed student. And I know that he can't get what he needs online. It's not possible. But those are parts of the things. But I think, as all my colleagues have said in different ways, that we really need to work to remove the emotions from this decision, because I believe that, you elect people to make decisions. Sometimes they're very hard decisions, but that's what we have to do based on the analysis of data, not because there were 300 more emails proposing one way to go as opposed to the other. It's great to get all that feedback, and as everyone said, you may not think so, but we do read those emails. I know I looked at all the ones that were sent to all the board or to me individually. I didn't respond because, as Mr. Sitton mentioned in our last meeting, that's not our protocol. Either the board president or the superintendent will answer questions, and I saw that they were, but I want people to think it's not because the rest of us don't care what you're saying. We hear you loud and clear. And I went through and actually, made folders of, the yays and nays, and I'll tell you, there were some very great comments, good comments, and I think, as Mr. Sitton alluded to, they were, or maybe it was Mr. Lopez, but in a very civil, thoughtful way. It gave me some things to think about, so I appreciate that. So I wanted to let all the parents and staff know that those were appreciated. Very sound arguments on both sides of the issue, and that was great to see. And Ms. Lamont Dixon just referred to this. To me, all the years I've served on the board, this is without a doubt, because I sat and thought about it, this is probably the most important decision I've had to be asked to vote on. And that includes having to make decisions on very serious budget cuts in years past that hurt and hurt people, our staff and students, and also on contentious attendance zones matters. But those things pale in comparison to this, because we're all faced here with the health and welfare of our students and our teachers and the community at large. When you want to say, well, if you do this, you might impact that. I get that. We all get that. So just know, and I think I'm repeating, but we take this very seriously. No one has come in here with a decision, oh, this is what the board's going to do. It's fait accompli. It's not. I don't, and I can tell you right now, in my brain, I don't know what the decision is going to be. I'm also thinking in terms of, I don't think, starting right out of the gate with face-to-face. I think I'd like to see some bit of a hybrid. And Mr. Sitton alluded to one possibility, as other people. And I think we'll talk about that, because I have some questions that I think I may know the answers to, but and some I don't. But I think there'll be questions that the community would like to hear, because they'd like to hear those answers too. So I think we can discuss that when we get to the item discussion, once a motion is made. I'll stop there, but I just really want to reiterate what everyone has said, that we take this, I shouldn't use that term, deadly serious. We take this very seriously. and we want to come out with the best solution for all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scarfo. Dr. Fagan, I'd like to give you some time to talk about what you and the rest of your team have been up to, and some of the work y'all have done behind the scenes, and then we'll open it up for public comment after that. And then when we get to the actual action item, we'll open it back up for questions pertaining to some of the different issues that we've been talking about. Okay.
Thank you. Well, it seems like yesterday, not, that, we left for spring break and had a lot of hard conversations about the fact that a lot of our Humble ISD family were traveling all over the place. And we knew that. And it seemed like the timing couldn't have been worse to come back together. So we knew that we needed to give everybody an opportunity upon their return to stay home for a bit and see what developed before we brought that forward. And then that was taken out of our hands, really, when the governor closed all the schools. And so our teachers were phenomenal. I mean, imagine doing your work one day and you're going along and you're planning and you're doing your thing. And then tomorrow somebody says, oh, no, you don't get to do any of that yet. We're going to do it completely differently. But our families were phenomenal, too, because a lot of people all of a sudden were faced with their own jobs and helping their own children navigate Flipgrid and Google Classroom and all of the various components of an online learning education, as well as their own jobs and their own lives. And so it was very complicated for all of us, but a lot like we've approached everything in Humble ISD since I've been here, whether it be a hurricane or a tropical storm or pandemic, everybody just sort of rises to the occasion, they make the adjustment, and they focus on what's best for students. And that's really how we completed the year together. My team had to immediately think about, well, what about grading policies and how are we going to complete the year and how are we going to do transcripts and what about graduations and all of those things that we normally do were all thrown up in the air. So in addition to the normal closing of a year where we have contract changes and things like that, budgets to develop, construction that we do over the summer, we had to make a complete pivot to a planning for a fall that we'd never done before. And with each new iteration of rules that came out, it seemed like we started with a plan for 25%, and then that changed to 50%. And then from there, we got summer school rules that went to square footage requirements. And then we had the UIL, which had a different set of rules. And every single time, a team that was closing a year and opening a year pivoted with a new set of rules and a new set of guidelines from the state and many others. And that's really continued. In the last week, it picked up probably the most we've ever seen. We had some preliminary plans to reopen on the 11th, as everyone knows, a calendar that we voted on last January, I believe, and wanted to really monitor the community health data because it changes so quickly. We would sit around the table and say, well, think back 4 weeks. What did you feel like? Oh, it was completely different. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing just-in-time decision-making so that we were really acting in the best interest of our students. And we also wanted to, like we always have, really personalize Humble ISD and make sure that we were asking our families to really think about their own healthcare needs, the needs of their families and their children, and to let us know what would be best. And that was actually born out of a conversation with a parent who let me know that she was really concerned about the idea of her child going back to school before a vaccine. And so that's kind of where it started. That was clear back in the spring before we even got to a May graduation usual time period. And from there, we constantly plan to offer those three options, the in-person, the online plus UIL. In fact, we even contemplated other options, but felt like it would be too much for us to navigate in such a short time period. So we were constantly gathering data and working to make sure that we gave every family a choice. And at the same time, once we understood those families' choices, we wanted to match those with the needs of our staff. So you have to know how many sections you need of online kindergarten or online biology or whatever the case may be before you can actually match that to the needs of the staff. So we started working through that and then started working through with our staff also. But as you know, that we were issued a Harris County order that sort of threw all of our work out and said September 8th was going to be it. And so we started working in that direction. And then we had Attorney General opinion and then a governor's piece. And at the end of the day, it was time for the board to come together and review all of the information that we've collected because it's probably a little beyond time. And I just want to say thank you to all of our staff. We really do have the very best staff that I've ever seen or aware of in public education. Thank you to our families. You all have been very honest and open, supportive, patient as we've worked through all of these different iterations of reopening education. We understand how very important it is to some for their children to be back. Many of us have our own children and have the exact same conversations in our own households about the extreme importance of kids getting back to various parts of school that are very important and necessary for their development. But we also understand the health considerations that must be part of a calculus, an analysis that we do together. And it would be so nice if we knew that on December 15th, there was going to be a vaccine and everything was going to be turned around back to the way we used to be. But I think that we all understand that's probably not the case. And so we have to plan for constant changing dynamics and a virus that we don't have as much information as we'd like to have, and children who need us, and an incredible staff who's there to support. So here we are tonight. We've provided the board with everything they've asked as far as the information that we have, ideas, things that we can logistically do, things we can't do, so that this board can then deliberate in the best interest of everyone in our community and make the very best decision for moving forward for our district. And I appreciate the comments you've all made tonight. I've appreciated the things you've requested from us, the questions you've had from us. We've all grown in this process. It's been a very fast process. But nonetheless, tonight I believe we will emerge with a direction, something that we all desperately want and need, so we can then work together to make it successful like we always do, no matter the selection of in-person, online, UIL plus online, and no matter the start date for that in-person learning. So thank you all for everything that you're doing tonight, and also for everybody who made time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fagan. And I want to thank you all for giving us the respect and hearing what we had to say. And I really, as we go through this, I want you to maintain that same respect for your fellow citizens as they come up, whether they're like-minded or not. So we want everyone to be heard in a respectful manner. So let's get to that. We're going to start with our in-person speakers. Our first speaker is Cammie Lee.
Thank you. I am a mother to 4 boys as well as a teacher's wife. My husband is an elementary PE teacher, and I speak on behalf of my entire family. I'm here this evening to implore you to move forward with in-person learning starting August 11th. And while I understand that others disagree with my position on this matter, I do not see how it is even remotely reasonable that their difference of opinion could ever take away my ability to choose what is in the best interest of my children, particularly when those individuals are being given the option to keep their kids at home. This isolation is dangerous to our kids' mental health and has proven to be detrimental to their ability to develop socially and academically in a functional and healthy way. And I am currently dealing with very concerning and serious mental health issues with 2 of my kids as a result of this shutdown. So I feel that I have a particularly unique perspective on the magnitude and the implications that this isolation is having on our kids. Today, I am asking for one thing, and that is the freedom of choice to send our kids back to school for in-person learning and to not allow the fear of others to dictate the future of our children, their education, and their overall well-being. I truly and deeply thank each and every one of you for your courage and your integrity around this decision, and I do trust that you will do what's best for all of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Our next speaker is Susan, is it Centron? Okay.
I believe that in-person education is the right choice for my 17, 15, and 11-year-old. They are learners. They need and deserve a 3D education. We all know this virus is not going away anytime soon, but my children have one chance at being educated. Just because my child watches a video and takes an online class on how to ride a bike doesn't mean they can actually ride a bike. Learning needs to be experienced. With precautions, our teachers can do this. I want to thank you, Humble ISD, for hopefully allowing a choice for in-person education. I will end with a quote from a teacher friend with 20 years experience. I know this, there are students of all ages that will never recover from this absence from in-person school. We can teach all the safety. I need kids in front of me. How do I bond with a child that's never met me in person or who hasn't learned to trust me? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just quick reminder, we'll give you a little bit of leeway, but we're trying to stick to that 1 minute mark because of so many speakers. Okay. Next up, Marla Wortman.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to you tonight. Although I am the mother of a 3rd grade Humble ISD student, I am not here to speak on her behalf. I am here to speak for the children that do not have a voice. I am here for the ones unseen and forgotten by those advocating to keep our schools closed. I'm here to speak on behalf of the children that are not safe in their own home. The children that were involved in more than 66,000 child abuse cases reported by the state of Texas in their last report. 66,000, that is more than the 44,000 that we have in our own district that are facing abuse every day in our state. Of that 235 children, I am here to speak on behalf that did not survive that abuse and that neglect within our state. 72 of those children are right here in Harris County, did not survive that abuse last year. I am here to beg you to factor in this data in moving forward and making this decision. Early intervention is critical in keeping these children safe, and our amazing teachers and school staff are a part of that. So please, home is not always safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I could speak.
Our next speaker is Ryan Cotton.
Good evening, Dr. Fagan and esteemed board members. On behalf of the 1,600 member group Harris County Parents for In-Person Education, primarily Humble ISD parents, I want to thank you for your efforts to listen to the community you serve and adapt in these times of constant change. Many months ago, you established a plan that allowed parents to choose what was best for their children and their families, full-time virtual learning or in-person education. Unfortunately, that choice appeared to be forcibly removed. At that time, we raised our voices and implored you to fight for our right to have that choice. You listened and adapted and surveyed the options. New legal direction was given that allowed a path for us to return to your original plan. We see that as you have discussed and wrestled with the decision to be made, that you have considered what is best for our children, our families, and even our community. We encourage you to stand in the face of mounting pressure and allow us to have the choice to have our children return to the classroom as originally planned or as close to that as possible. Again, we thank you for your tireless efforts to serve in a time of uncertainty and doubt. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Clint Horn.
Good evening to this board, and we thank you for this opportunity to speak to each of you. And I want to say firsthand, as a pastor, I've seen the devastating that this virus has done to the community and many funerals of friends and close loved ones that I've had to visit. I want to say to each of the board members, at the beginning of this meeting, each of you had a chance, the opportunity to speak. There was no defense needed. We know that you all work, you're our elected officials. As a parent of a 10-year-old and 8-year-old that attends Summerwood Elementary, we just wanted, as parents, a definitive decision made. I know it's been a lot of jumping back and forth. Mr. President, I appreciate that you put forward. I agree and support the decision to have a choice for the parents to be able to make. What I I fear and the questions that I need asked, as what a lot of parents are asking, the quota or the ratio of students in the classroom, how will those teachers be accounted for or supplied for those different majority? If a child chooses online, how is quickly is the transition then from online to in-person learning? So there are a lot of questions, and if there are more teachers needed, the budgeting effects of how that is going to take place. So I thank you, and I appreciate and look forward to those answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Catherine Chapman.
First, I'd like to start out by thanking the board for all your hard work the last 6 months. I know this hasn't been easy. I'm up here today because I believe schools should open for face-to-face learning. I believe the options that we're giving in the beginning were perfect because it helped every family in their situation to do what is best for their child. My daughter has a learning disability and she does not do well with online learning. My son, who is in pre-AP classes, didn't do well with online either. My daughter struggled in areas before the shutdown, and she will even struggle even further and get further behind if we start out on online classes. The best example I can give to school is like clothing. One size does not fit all. Not every student is an online learner, and not every student is either a visual learner, and we all have to make, changes especially for the special ed children. Since she and many others do not do well with the online learning, where would it leave those students when we start back up? How further behind will they be and they not be able to catch up to their classmates? Why should they suffer because people feel that school should not be reopened? Online learning doesn't work for everyone. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Katie Crabtree.
Hi, my name is Katie Crabtree. I would like to thank Dr. Fagan and the board for all of your tireless efforts. They have not gone unnoticed. I have a 12-year-old going into 7th grade at Timberwood Middle School and a 5-year-old going into 1st grade at the Groves Elementary. I'm here today to voice my support of returning kids to the classroom and face-to-face education. I believe that allowing kids and parents to choose face-to-face education is crucial for their mental, emotional, and academic success and well-being. These choices that have been offered are adequate, and I do believe that we can return safely. Our kids need and deserve to be back in the classroom, and all parents deserve to have that as an option. Thank you again for your time.
All right, Miss Shelley Holloway. No? Brandy Peacock. Mr. Joe Weir.
Good evening. My name is Joe Weir, and I'm here today as a concerned citizen and a retired teacher. We all know someone who has contracted this virus or has unfortunately passed away due to complications. The dire nature of your decisions and planning in reopening our schools will affect the lives, health, and well-being of thousands of students, teachers, staff members, district employees, family members, and our community at large. We also know that the prominence of stress and fear is counterproductive to the learning environment. Students and teachers must feel safe in order for learning to be stimulated. My closest circle of friends are teachers, and let me tell you, the current stress and fear level is real and at an all-time high. It is my hope that this board will join almost every school district in the Houston area in following the Harris County Public Health Directive of not bringing children back to face-to-face learning until after September 7th. Face-to-face instruction at the current infection rate is neither safe nor wise. There is and should be no rush when it comes to the safety of children. You have been given leverage of delaying that prospect, and most districts are doing just that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Weir. All right, Eric Laskowski. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad. my family is asking also that you open the schools from day one, whatever day that may be. If it's next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's no reason not to. Last semester, I think, was a failure in many ways, but we have an excuse for that. That excuse is that we got caught off guard by a virus we didn't know anything about, but now we do. We know about it. We know that children are not getting this virus. In fact, flu is more dangerous than COVID-19 to young children like my son, who's 7. And so we ask you to look at the science, make decisions based upon the science, and start these children. The dirty secret is, and I think what a lot of us are afraid of, is that if we start online, it's awfully easy to continue being online and continue. Delay it a week, delay it another week. The county judge has spoken. She said September 8th, it is not going to be time to reopen. So no matter when you make this decision, you are going to have resistance from the county.
Time.
Thank you. Thank you. Lindsay Holt.
Hello, I am the mother of an incoming Deerwood Elementary student as well as a 1999 graduate of Kingwood High School. I am forever grateful for the robust educational experience that Humboldt ISD provided me, and I hope that my son can receive the same starting August 11th. It has been said that schools are not babysitters, and I agree. Schools are actually the primary environment where children learn to socialize with friends from dramatically different backgrounds. Especially in this age of divisiveness, I would really love for my son to be able to attend school with children of different faiths and ethnic backgrounds in person, and also hear different languages on a daily basis. They also provide the meals and a safe space for children whose home lives are abusive and unstable. Finally, they provide much needed therapy and education to children with special needs. To deny families the choice to send their children into the classroom reeks of financial privilege and elitism. Most families do not have the money, time, or resources to homeschool any longer. Most importantly, many children need to attend school in person for the care, mental health benefits, nutrition, and education that a home environment cannot provide.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jennifer Crass.
As a parent of an incoming 5th grader who has dyslexia, this is an important year for her. For those that do not know, this is the final year of dyslexic services that provide guidance to learn to read versus options and programs to help her read going forward. In the spring, under the pandemic lockdown, my daughter's services were hindered by both IEP and 504 needs. She lost 21 hours of services and received under 4 hours of direct instruction via Zoom. If this continues in the 2021 school year, she will fall further behind and her abilities will continue to be hindered. I wish to have the choice to be for the best outcome of my student. I understand that there are students and parents who are concerned and or are immune compromised and would deserve to have the choice also for online. I have reviewed the school's guidelines on campus and as a facilities associate for a local church, ours not only aligns with the CDC guidelines, but in many cases have exceeded them. Please don't allow the choice for in-person instruction to be taken away.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to apologize in advance for this one. Seda Dodka. Hopefully I didn't mess it up too bad.
No, that was perfect. I always get nervous before my name gets called because I know I'll get butchered, but it was good. My name is Seda Dodka. I am the mother of a 5-year-old that's about to attend Hidden Hollow Elementary. A lot of the fellow parents here have addressed many of my concerns. Specifically with elementary education, you have a very small window of opportunity to hone in on
the students' developmental capacity. It's the perfect time for them to expound on their intellectual abilities. Socialization is developed at this age. To deny the parents the choice to send their kids to school without a thought of how that will impact in the future is really, really detrimental. It is, of course, my belief, and I also look at that in conjunction with the total amount of deaths that are reported in children that are 15 and younger, which is a total of 26 from February 1st to the 23rd of June. I don't think that that is sufficient enough to warrant the amount of fear that has been ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hilton.
Sir, I would like to correct you on one issue. You said that there was 30,000 cases in Harris County of active cases. I think whenever anybody goes onto that website, you need to understand there's 3 buttons at the top you can change. You were looking at Houston as a total. Currently in Harris County, active cases is around 9,200. One other issue I would like to bring up. Everybody keeps talking about active case numbers, death case numbers. Never before have we ever shut anything down on people getting sick. On deaths, totally makes sense. But on just being sick, flu virus the last 5 seasons has been more deadly. Death rate for this district, I broke down, I did a spreadsheet for everybody to see. In this district as a total, our cases of just numbers that we've seen affected is around 1%. Death rate is, for this area as a total, is 0.01%. So I have a problem shutting down all of the schools. I mean, everybody knows that in-person learning is the way to go. Everybody knows that children, especially underprivileged children or children with special needs, can't learn over a computer. The way the district had it set up originally, every parent got to choose what was best for their situation. Now we don't get to do that. Now we have to live on fear.
Time.
Okay, I guess I'll leave it there. I don't think 1 minute's enough to be able to cover what these parents are saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larissa Powell.
Hi, good evening. My name is Larissa Powell, and I have 2 children enrolled in Humble ISD. I come before you tonight and, with the unpopular opinion, ask for you to delay the start of school until it is deemed by healthcare professionals to safely start in person again. I believe it is rather irresponsible and political to make such a monumental decision going against what healthcare providers and professionals in charge of public health are recommending based on a parent survey. Are you prepared to accept responsibility for people getting sick? Regardless of the fact that parents want their children in school, at the end of the day, the responsibility for all of these preventable issues will be placed on you. You will not be able to use the parents as a scapegoat and state that this is what the parents wanted. You say that you care about your staff. How many teachers have resigned recently over the reasonable accommodations that you are imposing? While our children may not get sick, some may not, what about the teachers? What is your plan when all of the teachers get sick? Are you going to shut down the school?
Mr. Sitton, Sandy Reese is ready to go.
Oh, all right. All right. Thank you, Rusty. So we're moving to the we're moving to the video conference speakers. Our first speaker is Sandy Reese.
Unmute. Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get this going here. Okay. First, I want to thank the board and superintendent. I know that this decision weighs heavily, and you are all doing your best to balance safety with the diverse educational needs of our students. I'm here on behalf of the many students in special education that are unable to benefit from virtual learning. Every day our school doors are closed is another day of their education permanently lost, and the gap further widens between them and their peers. Due to my child's disabilities, he's unable to learn online. He requires direct in-person support to access curriculum, related services, and therapies. He represents the many special education students in our district that are falling through the cracks. Their federally protected rights have been stripped away based on fear and not facts. As a parent, it is my right to choose which learning environment is best for my child and our family. And until in-person learning is made available to them, I'll continue to advocate for those like Brandon and May Lee and Cassie, and the many others who are unable to advocate for themselves. Special education students deserve an education too, and their access to a free and appropriate public education is in your hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Sutton, Alyssa Hyde is coming into the meeting.
Alyssa Hyde.
Yes, can you guys hear me? Yes. Thank you. Okay, I'm the parent of a special education student. We currently have uncontrolled transmission in our county. Our county positivity rate is at 14%. We are making progress, but we are not there yet. Our ICUs are overflowing. Dr. Joseph Barron, chief of the critical care at Houston's United Memorial Medical Center, when asked about opening schools, he said the hospitals would absolutely not be able to handle the large surge. He also states that one person can infect 52 people in 1 hour. After a youth camp in Georgia was infected, the CDC now says that it adds to the body of evidence that demonstrate children of all ages are susceptible. Our district needs time. We need time for the positivity rate to decrease, time for hospitalizations to decrease, and time for the district to come up with a better plan to keep everyone safe, including our special education students. I know there are members of the board who have their minds somewhat made up, but let's get back to the board's code of ethics, as you are supposed to follow and base your decision on facts. Listen to those with knowledge that you do not possess, our public health officials. Right now, the district is setting our students, staff, and faculty up for disaster. I leave you with one pressing question. How many deaths are acceptable?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Odom, who's next?
Ms. Jennifer Riedmeyer.
Jennifer Reed.
Hi, can you hear me?
Ma'am.
Hey, hi, I'm Jennifer Reitmeyer. Dr. Fagan and the board, especially beloved Brent, as a community member to whom you extended a personal invitation to this meeting, refers to you. I ask that you delay in-person instruction until the positivity rate has declined. With some elementary classes at 28 students, middle school classes with up to 22 kids, Abbott's mask order for 10 and up expiring on August 26th, no masks for most elementary school kids, secondary schools going back to 100% after Labor Day potentially, and the CDC acknowledging over the weekend that kids are super spreaders, it's highly likely that you'll have to shut back down within weeks of opening, tarnishing our reputation irreparably. To save lives, for the sake of consistency for the kids, to avoid a wave of justified teacher resignations this week, and to avoid destroying future teacher recruitment possibilities, please choose the pragmatic option. Start us off in the way that we'll end up going inevitably. Online only for now, for all but those in dire need of in-person instruction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Melissa Arias is coming in.
Melissa Arias. I love technology.
Am I on?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So my name is Melissa. I'm just speaking in behalf of my daughter, who's 6 years old. She'll be starting the Spanish immersion program at Bear Branch this year. I'm here to advocate for face-to-face learning. I feel we should be given the opportunity to choose what's best for our individual children, just like those can choose to do all online. But my daughter has voiced that she learns best in person. And for my situation personally, I'm a nurse in a hospital. I care for COVID patients. If I am forced to do all online, I will be forced to quit my job, which then will take me away from treating COVID patients as well, which I'm pretty sure a lot of healthcare providers will be having to do the same thing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Morgan Lewis is ready to go.
Morgan Lewis.
Hi, my name is Morgan Lewis, and I wanted to say I thank y'all for everything y'all do for the district. I'm a frontline worker, and I have 3 young students in the district who are special need for speech. And I just wanted to say that, like, being a frontline worker, a lot of us work long shifts, and online learning is almost impossible for a lot of us. For our kids, like, we do it, but it's hard. And my kids, my older 2, they really miss school, and their mental health is, they're missing their friends, their interaction. And as other people have said, the death rate in our area has dropped down to 0.01%. And I feel like we should have a choice, like parents that want to keep their kids online learning, they can. And then the parents that want to send their kids to school, that should be an option, because there should always be a choice. So, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you.
Paul Sandvik is coming in.
Paul Sandvik.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share my opinion, and I appreciate your service to the community. You have a huge responsibility for making a decision that considers not just the education of the children, but also the safety of your employees and the entire surrounding community. This virus spreads like fire, and if the fire department said a fire is not contained, you certainly would not risk the safety of students and employees by sending them into the fire. Sadly, however, there are many employees who are experiencing significant anxiety as you consider the idea of risking their health by sending them into what every other school district in the area has already recognized is a dangerous situation. I pray that God gives you the wisdom and the courage to make the common sense decision to protect everyone in the community by postponing in-person classes until the virus is brought under control, which is when the positivity rate is below 5%. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maya Richard is coming in.
Good afternoon. I'm a sophomore at Cascasita High School. I first wanted to commend Ms. Lamont Dixon on her suggestions and leadership in the last board meeting regarding diversity and inclusion in Humble ISD. I am here with the Diversify Our Narrative Initiative, a student-led organization, and I'm asking the board to put the Diversify Our Narrative Initiative on the agenda for the next school board meeting so that we can have enough time to truly express our concerns regarding diversity in the district from a student's perspective.
All right, thank you very much.
Sophie Macy coming in.
You're on mute.
Mute. Hi, thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak tonight and for the tireless work you have put in. I would like to share my opinion as a mother of 3 Humble ISD students, 2 of which who are in the Spanish immersion program at Groves Elementary and 1 who receives services from the school. I am respectfully asking the board to open schools for in-person learning, preferably on the original start date of August 11th. My children are in a unique situation where they are taught in a language that I do not know. They want to be back in the classroom with their teachers and their classmates. 7 weeks into online learning in the spring, my then first grader was finally able to communicate to me that he just can't learn online. He said, "Mom, Can you please just watch these videos and then teach me what they're saying? Of course it broke me because I'm trying my best to juggle my 4 children's educations, 2 of which are in a language that I do not know. It was then that my eyes were opened that virtual learning is not for all children. Our children are not cookie cutters. We as parents need to be given a choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Scott Egan is coming in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm here to advocate for a safe, science-based, delayed return to school. First off, I'm a parent of 3 kids in the district. Second, I'm a former Humble ISD student from K through 12, where Mrs. Morrison might have been my principal. And currently, I'm an associate professor of biology at Rice University. I strongly encourage Humble ISD to adopt clear, quantitative, and science-based standards to safely allow our kids, teachers, and staff to return to and stay in school. Providing clear standards removes the guesswork and worry for everyone involved. These metrics that I will propose now are clearly and publicly available. New cases per day, which are up 700% from when we left school in May. Number of active cases, and also the percent positivity rate, which is up 400% from when we left school. At this stage in the coronavirus pandemic, it is critical that Humble ISD consider the status of our community as we make these important decisions.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Martha Naya.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Martha Yim, and I'm an incoming freshman at Atascocita High School. I am here today in support of the Humble ISD Diversify Our Narrative chapter. As we all know, education is essential for the youth and future generations. In terms of what's happening in the world right now, something needs to be done. Our proposed reading list includes books such as The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas and Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria by Beverly Daniel Tatum. The lack of diversity in our education was brought up on the June 9th board meeting by board member Mrs. Dixon, and we want to help push this agenda. My brother Gaston Yem, an alumni of Atascocita High School, has informed me how some parents would not feel comfortable with their children reading books such as these. I understand implementing these books is not an easy feat, but we urge you to diversify our education, even simply widening the umbrella of the civil rights movement beyond MLK and Rosa Parks. Learning about the Asian American and Mexican American civil rights movement would certainly help us grow as students. I believe we can make a change in the world, starting with Humble ISD. Thank you for your time.
Very much.
Charles Watson.
Yes, thank you. I don't need to reiterate my own family's belief that we need to attend school as soon as possible. My children are all for it, mostly to get away from me probably. But one thing I did want to address is that whatever decision is made, this is a stepwise process. And like any process, it's more effective when you're planning that for the future. So in the future, schools are going to reopen. In-person learning will continue. And we need to have criteria established clearly to define when all students can begin attending schools in person full-time. I've not seen anything like that right now established. This yardstick that we're going to use needs to be unwavering in regards to political agendas and unchecked bureaucracy. We need to have it clear and well communicated to administrators, teachers, students, parents as well. And I'd strive the school board to make sure that we're establishing that as soon as possible. And keep in mind that while it may change because of scientific reasoning, there are very few reasons that once established, it should change. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stacy Smith is coming in.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stacy Smith, and I have 2 Humble ISD elementary students and 3 future students, and I want to add my voice to Professor Egan and Mr. Watson. I would advocate for a slower, phased-in approach with those with highest needs first. The Back to School website gives answers to some frequently asked questions, but it does not give a detailed plan. In Dr. Fagan's May video, she mentioned the possibility of restricting capacity based on current health data and pivoting to remote if needed. These contingencies are not accounted for at this time. Where is the plan to restrict capacity and phase in more students as the data improves? Where is the plan for how many cases will cause a school to shut down and go remote? Will parents be prepared to pivot, as she said, or will they fight the return to virtual if cases rise on campuses? Where is the plan that aligns any and all phases of school return to the public health phases and data? Many parents and staff appreciate the choices they have been given, but will they be able to change course as situations arise? People need to know what could happen so they can be prepared in those instances. A specific set of guidelines based on predetermined data points will allow the opinions to be taken out of the decision and the emotions, as Mr. Scarfo said, and allow the district to make changes quickly and efficiently as needed, and for staff, families, and students to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly Matherly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Good evening. My name is Holly Matherly. I'm the mother of Titan Matherly, a first grader at Green Tree Elementary School. Tonight, I am asking you to delay in-person learning and not to start in-person school next week. My reasons are based on data and science, not emotion. The CDC recommends that people stay 6 feet apart in order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. With the current class sizes in Humble ISD, this would be impossible. This weekend, Deborah Burks was asked if areas with greater than 5% positivity rate should delay opening schools. The current positivity rate in the greater Houston area is 21%, according to the Texas Medical Center. Deborah Burks responded that if you have a high caseload and active community spread, we are asking people to distance learn at the moment so that we can get the epidemic under control. According to the Texas Medical Center, we have according to the state of Texas, we have 100 ICU beds available in our trauma region, which stretches from Galveston to Huntsville.
Time has expired.
Please delay in-person learning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jessica Nolan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Jessica Nolan. I have 4 children who attend school in our district. They're great students involved in sports and other activities, and they want to be back in school when it is safe. We all do. Up until last week, I was an Humble ISD teacher. I resigned because I have watched how several of our board members and superintendent made every ounce of this reopening plan political. Instead of making basic safety requirements like a mask mandatory, they're optional after the governor's mandate ends. Instead of following the guidance of our local public health officials and being leaders, the superintendent created fear by saying meals and special education services were in jeopardy. Today, I cleaned out my classroom. I left my dream job, working at an amazing campus with amazing people and students. I implore you to make decisions based on science and not politics. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Nicholas Daly is coming in.
I'm muting. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, hello, my name is Nicholas. I'm a Kingwood High graduate and current law student where, yes, my classes will be online. I appreciate why parents and the board want children in school. Face-to-face instruction is an invaluable piece of student instruction, and the American Association of Pediatrics and the CDC agree that students belong in school, but only on the condition that these schools are reopened safely. Humble ISD currently has no plan to guarantee the safety of either students or faculty. Other schools have already attempted to reopen. One such school, Greensfield Central Junior High in Indiana, confirmed a case of COVID as early as day 1. 2 Indiana schools have already shut down following staff and students testing positive for COVID. That's Elwood Junior Senior High and Lanesville Junior Senior High. For context, Indianapolis only has a 7% positivity rate. In Houston, we're around 23%. The World Health Organization recommends that schools do not reopen until the positivity rate falls below 5%. Currently, the board's plan for responding to positive cases only involves sending notification home to parents that a student in their class was positive for COVID. Get that right. That's not isolation, not quarantine, not closure. Do not reopen the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madison Davila.
Hello.
Hello.
I understand that the hot topic at this time is online or in-person learning. However, I hope you keep an open mind. I'm an incoming student at Atascocita High School and a member of Diversify Your Narrative, which is a student-led group whose goal is to encourage a productive dialogue on race and identity among our student bodies through the inclusion of racially diverse anti-racist texts in schools. We completely understand that as a school board, you do have a specific protocol in place for the selection of new materials in the classroom. While we respect these procedures, the amount of thoughtfulness and dedication this review process demands, we would like to request that you include racially diverse books written by or about people of color with proper representation. We have made a petition for this request that currently has a total of 293 signatures. We would like to further talk about the situation, so please include us on the agenda for the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ali Kraus.
Mr. Odom, can we move on to the next one and then come back?
Anaya Baxter.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Anaya Baxter, a junior at Atascocita High School. I'm here today standing in support of the Diversify Our Narrative initiative. It is extremely important that the students who sit in your classrooms at your desk are properly educated about race issues and history. We can't wait for them to become adults and hope they do their own research, nor can we wait for the internet to show them how little they learn in school. We must also properly represent all students. Humble ISD is a family, but at this time and in the past, students of color, myself included, have felt like the neglected child. Our struggles and authentic stories have been dismissed, and we haven't felt the love we're promised when we enroll in your district. The current reading list fails to include the perspective of non-white authors who offer a different truth one white author can't replicate. This current curriculum also fails to accurately convey our history, how it still impacts us, and who we are as people. I love Humble ISD dearly, and I'm privileged to receive all the benefits the district has worked so hard to provide for the student body. It is with my love, though, that I encourage you to do better. I urge you to take action by putting this topic on the official agenda for future board meetings and make plans to diversify your curriculum as quickly as possible. There's no time to wait, and if there's any belief that there is, that's another example of how students of color are treated as afterthoughts. I appreciate your time, and thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much.
Benjamin Daly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I had just two questions for the board. First, I wonder if they consider the cost of wrongful death litigation that might arise out of deaths caused by reopening too soon. And second, will the board members be personally bearing the cost of such litigation? Will the taxpayers be left footing the bill? I yield my time.
Thank you very much.
Timothy Almendarez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, I have two children in the Humble ISD, but I'm in favor of them not returning until September 7th as required by the county officials. I also have 17 years in EMS and being director, health and safety, and I can tell you this is the worst thing we've ever come across. Anyone who thinks that you're not going to be affected, you're just kidding yourselves. The infection rate, if you open the schools, you're just going to create a pool for students to spread this to their families, to their grandparents, who are people that are at risk. I have seen this with my own eyes, picking up patients, taking them home, taking them to hospitals. Some refuse to go to the hospitals, not believing they have COVID, bringing it home to their families. Any schools that are opening right now across the country, we're having to shut down within a week or two. That is going to happen to here. If you think that it's not going to happen to you, you're just fooling yourselves. It's just a natural process of the virus.
Thank you.
Yep.
Daniel Abrascato.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am not only concerned about the safety of my child, but the community as a whole. Keeping our child at home might protect our family, but having schools open to in-person learning will continue the spread of the virus and impact our entire community. There is not a sustained, appreciable downward trend of cases in our district that indicates that it's safe to open schools. Delaying the start of in-person classes for all until Labor Day should be the choice. Just because you don't have to listen to local health officials doesn't mean you shouldn't. We have seen what happens when schools open in person. Schools in Indiana have opened and had to be shut down on the first day due to the coronavirus. Humble's current plan for how classrooms will respond to positive COVID cases is also woefully inadequate. The virus spreads due to asymptomatic carriers, and we cannot count solely on parents keeping their child home if they are feeling sick. Baseball is a group of millionaires with rapid and regular testing. In less than 1 week of playing, they have been unable to contain outbreaks. Teachers with limited budgets and resources have little hope in comparison. As other people have said, I want to reiterate what the White House Task Force Coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, has said. It would be unsafe to open schools in communities where there is a positivity rate above 5%. The current positivity rate in our district is above 20%. Thank you.
Let's keep our comments down, please.
Philip Jones.
As a father of an incoming KMS student and Humble alumni myself, thanks for your time. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
As a father of an incoming KMS student and Humble alumni myself, thanks for your time. Humble ISD is likely the most aggressive Houston area district on reopening without the most aggressive policies on mitigation. I urge you to take a more cautious stance and more closely adhere to CDC guidelines. Given your backgrounds, you're likely familiar with Monte Carlo simulations as a forecasting tool. I built one using the statistics for Humble ISD and CDC data. Out of 1,000 simulated semesters, 94% resulted in at least one staff death from COVID-19 contracted on campus, a high cost and a near certainty. With that result, it is likely that the first school staff death in the area will be in Humble ISD. We will be scrutinized and the focal point for the debate in closing schools again. This will cause long-lasting reputational harm, jeopardizing retention, recruitment, and Humble ISD as a selling point for the area. This board will be responsible for defending this reopening approach with little cover from the state. I'm urging you to prevent this outcome by taking a more cautious approach and more strictly adhering to CDC guidelines based on the infection rate in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
April Henshaw.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is April Henshaw. My daughter is a new student at Kingwood Middle School, and this is certainly not how we envisioned her first year starting. We're all trying to make hard decisions here, and I realize that you have hard choices ahead of you. But we have to set an example for the kids and show them that we can do hard things. It's easy to pass the blame onto the county or down to a child who refuses to wear a mask, which if you notice right now, most of your board members can't even wear a mask for an entire meeting. So I don't know how you expect middle schoolers or children to do that. And I'd like to also mention that you're going to have to decide who is going to start attending the funerals, because there will be one, at least one. It will be a custodian, you know, it will be a vice principal, you know, it will be a teacher, you know. Everyone's mentioning their kids and their family, but it's going to go home to everyone's kids and family, and you will have to go to a funeral. Who is that designated person for you? I just wanted to ask you that question.
Thank you very much. Just so everybody knows, we do have the PPE up here, so go ahead.
Lori Hathaway.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lori Hathaway. I've been a resident of Kingwood since 1998, where we moved specifically because of the schools. Our daughters got an outstanding education here, and we appreciate how difficult this decision is for you. We've been following the outbreaks where schools have already opened. Mississippi, Georgia, Indiana, New York, Virginia have all had outbreaks that affected a large swath of their community or else closed shortly after reopening. We recently lost 2 Kingwood firefighters, one in each station, to COVID. As leaders of this community, we look to you to accept the moral consequences of your choices. We need you to consider the natural likely outcomes of these choices. I implore you to consider that lives are at stake. When every elementary school had an annual outbreak of head lice, I fear we may not be able to recognize the stakes right now are higher. If we open before it's safe, we may very well end up with massive loss in our community. And please understand that this community will hold each and every one of you accountable. Thank you for listening, and I pray that you make a decision that protects this community.
Thank you very much.
Phaedra Burton.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. As an educator, going on my 14th year in education and a mother of 3 Humble ISD students, as a teacher, I've heard that data drives our decision-making for our students. And right now we need to let the data drive our instructions. Our White House task force doctor said that distance learning should continue at this moment so that we can get this epidemic under control. The Harris County Health Department said that if we open schools for face-to-face learning at the moment, we will cause a new wave of cases and hospitalizations. Learning will not stop if we are virtual. Teachers in Humble ISD have participated in outstanding virtual learning training that will enable us to provide high quality instruction to all students. Parents are fighting for a choice. As a teacher, I'm fighting for the health and safety of not only our students, but our staff, our families, and our community as a whole. Data shows that we should not return for in-person learning until our positivity rate is below 5%. If we do,
Ms. Burton, your time has expired.
If we do, lives are on the line. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jana Rowe.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I'm a spouse of an Humble ISD employee. My concern is that I have no idea what my husband will be walking into when he goes to work every day. This impacts how I protect my family, namely our 8-month-old son. I asked the board to consider teachers and their families in making the decisions on when to start in-person education. I asked the board to consider how those actions impact teachers with larger class sizes, such as fine arts or elective classes. Having these teachers teach outside is absolutely unacceptable. When considering the best plan of action, the board should consider all areas of discipline. We need to be honest with ourselves on how educators and staff can provide quality education to all children within the school district. That means realizing some teachers will have more work teaching in person and virtually for each class. Consider the time and resources needed to accomplish this. Ask yourselves, can this be executed properly by August 11th? Thank you.
Mary Newman.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, my internet went down just a second ago. Okay. All along, most of you have indicated your reopening decision would happen after looking at the most current data. The board has not been transparent with exactly what data, criterion, or information it will use. This can be difficult in such an unusual situation, but it is important that the board clearly identify such criteria on which its decision is based and if and why some data is dismissed. That will also help the district understand whether it is time to revisit conclusions when things change. I'd suggest starting with Dr. Redfield at the CDC and Dr. Burks' recommendations and thoughts from this weekend regarding positivity rate. Furthermore, before divorcing Humble ISD from Harris County numbers, please stop and think what hospital you would choose to go to if stricken with COVID, where it is, and what system it's affiliated with. We don't live in a bubble. As far as student education during this time, I expect the board to have a robust continuity plan for when and if students or teachers and staff become strained with sickness or quarantining. It will be disastrous to learning if effective teachers are not available. There are 2 ways to achieve such a contingency: minimize risk to the teacher population and build a strong bench. Your bench is weak with 130 current vacancies
Expired.
and many subs like myself that will not return.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kayla Gonzalez.
You're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you for your efforts during this challenging time. I am a secondary ELA teacher in the district and currently set to teach 5 class periods of in-person instruction and 1 online class. As we make reopening plans, my concerns lie with the lack of district guidelines in regards to the size expectations of our virtual courses. My virtual course, which I am only allotted 1 class period in the school day for, currently has 49 students on its roster. We would never consider having a traditional class of 49 students, and I believe the same ideals should be honored in our virtual classrooms. Thankfully, my campus has heard my concerns and have said they are working toward a solution. However, if we are hoping for consistency between virtual and in-person instruction, I feel the district needs to make certain assurances to its parents and teachers that this will not happen. Reasonable class sizes for virtual courses should be not attempted, but guaranteed. No matter the start date, our students deserve quality instruction, and our district needs to ensure that teachers are in a position to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rachel Greer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much. And I do want to take just a moment of my time to commend the students who have spoken on diversity and support the request for to be placed on the agenda. I want to explain briefly why I support an in-person option. First, my daughter is dyslexic, and the spring online program was very, very tough for her. She's 8 years old, going into 3rd grade, and this year is very crucial for her. While I applaud everything her 504 team has been doing for her, I do believe an in-person intervention plan is best for her to continue to progress and not fall behind her peers. I don't think a positivity rate of 1% and a death rate of 0.001% is enough to warrant not having in-person 504 services. Second, as a working parent who is considered essential and does not currently have the ability to telework every day, trying to supervise 3 kids in 3 different school settings, elementary, middle, and high school, just to make sure all 3 are online is impossible.
Ms. Geary?
And I just want to say thank you. I know you guys are working very hard, and this is a difficult decision. I just want to thank you, and please consider a virtual learning center for working parents and 504 in-person options in your considerations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rachel Walker.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. My name is Rachel Walker, mother of 2 current students. I believe we should delay in-person instruction for as long as possible. I've heard a lot of talk about how this virus will be with us for some time. Let me draw upon another serious human predator, cancer. If you catch cancer early, you can defeat it. If you supply COVID with a food source, that is us, humans, the virus will continue to thrive and mutate, and as such, put off an effective vaccine for many more months to come. To date, we have 766 deaths in our county due to COVID, despite social distancing and masks used in our phased reopenings, a much larger number of deaths than in the spring lockdown. As such, it does not make sense to reopen schools in person at this time. If you take precautions as a board, history will judge you more favorably. What will be your legacy? Please consider to delay in-person instruction per the health officials and the CDC guidance at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Roger Daly. Mr. Sitton, we're going to go back to Holly Kraus.
Okay.
Mr. Sitton, that is all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your respect of others. We appreciate it. At this time, it's 8:42. We're going to take a 5-minute recess so that we can go to the restroom and come back and be ready to go. Okay, it is now 8:58 and we are reconvening in our open session. We did have one individual that was in the queue that got missed. So we're going to start this before our action item. We're going to have one more online speaker. Mr. Odom, are they there?
Yes, go ahead.
Barely.
Can you hear me better?
That's a little bit better. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is sort of an irony with the Zoom call not working well. Well, I am a parent in the Humble ISD family and a biomedical scientist who understands the scientific data and also understands unsupported fact. My kid has 2 working parents, and I have lost a family member to this disease. So as you can imagine, I have evaluated our present situation from multiple facets. And I'm here to urge the board to please listen to the needs and choices of the families. Consider, as you evaluate those needs and choices, the fact that daycares, day camps, and summer camps have remained open throughout the pandemic and still are. My kid has participated in summer camps for the past several weeks. Understand that Humble ISD, as well as all other districts, cannot provide comprehensive education in an online-only format that can fit the needs of all families. It is simply impossible to recreate or replace the social and academic learning experiences that occur on campus. It is also unfair to the families to have the expectation that working parents who must work to make a living should become full-time volunteers in the education program. Your decision it will have profound impact in the lives of the children and the families, and in the development of thousands of students in what will begin to shape their future. So please take that into consideration, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. And we are going to move into our action item, which is the Humble ISD Fall 2020 reopening plans. I would like to reread what I finished my quotes earlier in the evening with in the form of a motion. Then we will have that. We'll see if someone will second that. Then we'll open up for discussion after that. I move that we begin Tuesday, August the 11th, online only for the first week, and begin in-person instruction on Monday, August 17th for pre-K through 5, and then the A-B schedule for all secondary students for those who chose in-person. All self-contained special education students will be welcomed on campus every day. This will give our in-person learners the opportunity to get acquainted and comfortable with the online portal and allow our teachers the extra time they have requested to prepare for the transition. October 12th, if all is well, 8 weeks of transition is up, and all pre-K 8 through 8 students who selected in person will be on campus every day. High schools will remain on AB. If we get a vaccine or 5% spread matrix, we will transition to 100% in person for all who selected in person. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now we'll open it for discussion. Mr. Lopez.
Sure, I'll go first. We're never going to go back to a normal. That's what Ms. Toomey said, and I think some other board members, and that is 100% correct. This virus is not going away, even with a vaccine. There's never going to be zero risk, even with a vaccine. We must prepare for the new normal now. We have to accept it and start and get as comfortable as we can as a community, as a school district, and get everyone, staff and students, into the groove of what is going to be our new normal. And so part of that is opening our doors to our kids. And the question is when. It's always been my question is when. When do we do it? Is it going to be a big difference between now and August, September, October? You know, we look at the data, you know, even we heard it here tonight. Everyone claims that they looked at the data online and no one agreed, right? It's true though. It's really honestly not a laughing matter. And also the data, you know, COVID went through my office. I've got an office, we opened back up. 4 of my 9 employees got it. I was in a conference room with one that had symptoms. We thought it was allergies. We social distanced though, and I got tested 3 times, never had it, thank goodness. And it's going to be out there, and we have to accept it and make sure we do what we can to prevent it. And so that's why I want Dr. Fagan, although she's put a lot of this information out there, and it's online, she's talked about it, it's in her emails. I would like her to talk about what the plan is for some of the PPE that we have. I want her to talk about the AB, talk about numbers, anticipated numbers when we go back in person. And I think that's important so we can everyone can wrap their heads around that. And especially for the folks that haven't read what Dr. Fagan has put out. So Dr. Fagan, can you take it from there? Just kind of give everybody an idea of, on the AB schedules, we're talking about numbers, both elementary and secondary. What's that going to look like? And some of the PPE that we've implemented, the HVAC stuff with the UV lights, all that stuff.
Okay, Mr. Lopez, that's a long list. So let's start with the AB part. As many of you know, we've asked our families what they would prefer, online plus UIL, or in-person learning for their children. And in my last email, I really encouraged folks to get with the healthcare providers and professionals that you really trust and who really know you and your family well, and make the very best decision for you, because I cannot do that. Members of my staff cannot do that. My teachers can't do that. None of us are equipped to do that. Only you can make the decision for your children. The same is true for my children. And at the same time, you know, we feel very strongly that the same opportunity needs to be available to our staff members. But and that said, we're working really hard with staff who have reached out to us and said, I have this concern, or I'd like to be online, and to see if we can't try to do a win-win scenario. That's the goal. So starting with the secondary folks, we have about, and these numbers change every day because, as you know, we asked every family to make that difficult decision for their children. And then we said on July 27th, we were prepared, we set up systems so that you could go in and change your decision, and we support that. We know that the community health data constantly changes because it changes for us to deal with. We know that people have changing dynamics in their families. Maybe a grandma moves in, maybe something happens. We support families in making that decision. And if it changes in a week, it changes in a week. We're here to support you. And then I said, and it could be messy if it changes in a week, because we have a lot of work we have to do on the backside of that, but we're willing to do it. We're willing to partner with you the way that we always have to meet the needs of the children in this district. So at the high school level, these are just round figures, and I didn't look right this minute, it was actually this morning, about 65% of our families have chosen in person. So that's why we have an A-B schedule put together, because we want to take that 65% and reduce it in half again. Because 65% doesn't provide the amount of social distancing we really would like to see on a secondary campus. They're bigger people, and so that's all things that we take into consideration. And frankly, if you look at the health data, the older you get, the more impacted it appears you could be. And that's certainly not an all or nothing scenario, but it's just, on averages, that's what we're seeing. And so we wanted to reduce that again. So on any given day, we would be looking at 50% of let's pretend it's 65% of students on campus, which allows us to really reduce the number of people in a campus, in the hallways, at lunchtime, in every place that we have. And in addition to that, we've repeatedly said that we are under a governor's order, and we warmly welcome all PPE. And that's another decision that a family has to make based on, again, the orders that are in place, we will follow. But beyond that, there are people that have said, look, you know, for my health condition, I can't, or whatever, and we will work through that with them. We have put out, we procured through TEA a lot of PPE, and our goal would be to do what we call a load set of PPE. So many gloves, masks, shields, these kind of things on a campus to start. And then from there, we'll see what the usage is at that particular campus and work to replenish. That's the goal there. So because we're not really sure what that will look like. And so we participated in that statewide procurement, and items are still arriving. We have most of it, and we've delivered most of it to our campuses based on number of students and staff in that particular campus. So we warmly welcome all of that. At the same time we were doing all of those things, Nolan's team and Kenny Kendrick and his team started doing a lot of reading on things that we could change in our air handling systems, things that we could do to improve air quality, because there's a lot of conversation about this. So one thing we know that is pretty positive is being outdoors. And I know that's not always it's not always an option, but it certainly was a good thing at graduation. And it allowed us to have, in my opinion, very beautiful graduations for our seniors in our class of 2020. And beyond that, we started looking at, okay, indoor air quality. Well, Kenny did all kinds of research, and he's like a genius of HVAC. And he came forward and he said, look, we need to switch from MERV 7.8s to MERV 13 air filters. Now, some of you know exactly what that means, and other people are like me and only know a little bit what that means. But the idea is that he took recommendations from experts that these filters trap more virus, bacteria, things like that than the 7.8s. And in addition to that, UV lights in your HVAC systems are recommended. So every chiller that we have replaced since 2006 in Humble ISD has an HV or a UV system. And so then Kenny's also working on, where else can we make those changes to add additional UV light where it makes sense. We've looked at portable UV lights. Kenny's also looking at HEPA air filter scrubbers, where you put these in rooms like cafeterias and choir rooms, and they bring in the air and they scrub it right there on site and push it back out. So Kenny's been full steam ahead, in addition to all the normal summer maintenance, in addition to all the construction support that he provides. He's been doing all of those things. We've also been working on changing out our water fountains to bottle fillers, because that's another recommendation. No more water fountains, only bottle filters. So that's in progress also. So we've been working with experts in different fields to, the other thing about Kenny's world, he has a whole long list of stuff, is that we have the ability to change out the air in our buildings. So that sounds weird, but it's really true. We can purge all the air out and then we can suck all air new in. That's Liz's version, not Kenny's. And so we're going to do that more often than we typically would. And we're also going to run our chillers longer than we typically would. We try to conserve energy, because we don't want great big energy bills. But we try to do that. But what we know is that if we run our chillers earlier and later, it recycles the air more, and the lower set points, which is something else we're doing, is not virus friendly. So those are all things that I'm just remembering off the top of my head from what I call Kenny's list. We all have a list, by the way. We all have a coronavirus list of things that we're working on in addition to what we always work on. And so we're doing those things on our campuses. We are dramatically limiting visitors, because we all know that the fewer adults mixing on the building, the better. And we're changing a lot of our typical processes and protocols for things like lunch or bathroom breaks. We're really thinking about more cleaning of touch points more often, more building fogging more often. These are all things that Nolan and his team are working on. The procurement of PPE, the delivery, all those things I've said. So we've done a lot of operational things. And I know people are really looking for sort of like the red, green, yellow, if it's this percent, we do this kind of thing. But really every campus has nuances, and we're working through those with our operations team, with our instructional team, to figure things out, whether it's isolation rooms that nurses are going to need, or whether it's the particular necessities of a choir room. So we're working through all of those pieces and parts also. I think those are kind of the high level things at the secondary level. The middle schools would be on that same A-B kind of scenario. So just like the high schools, we take that 65%, we reduce it in half, and that's the number of students on a given campus on a given day. As we get to elementary, it's a little more challenging in that younger children seem to have are less impacted by the virus. But we want their teachers to be safe, of course. And so again, we want them to spread out to the extent possible, use spaces that are not typical. And again, when you have fewer bodies on a campus, it means that there's more spaces available. So people can spread out and use other areas. I've heard principals talking about wheeling lunch tables outdoors when it's nice, and just a lot of different thinking. We usually gather in the morning and then the little kids go to their classrooms. But now principals are saying, no, it'd be better if they just go straight to their classrooms, because then they won't have all that mixing in the morning that they would otherwise have. They're really trying to keep those elementary units intact so that you have less opportunity to mix. So those are all some of the things that Mr. Lopez is referring to. And I forget what else was on my list, Mr. Lopez.
I don't remember all of them. All I know is that it's the amount of information. It's almost like drinking from a fire hose. When I call Liz all the time, just so you guys know, because this is, I mean, it's a difficult decision, and we are trying to look at the data, trying to make sure that we're protective of both our students and our staff. We're also trying to take into consideration the things that we, a lot of things have been said tonight from the parents of these students. And I'm a parent of a student that he needs to go back in person and go to school as well. So as I mentioned before, I also asked Dr. Fagan to put together some what I call kind of delayed or soft opens. And my logic behind asking her to do that was that I wanted to make sure that not only our staff was familiar with the PPP, the PPE, get their classrooms the way they want it. If they want partitions like this, we can help them do stuff like that, see if they're comfortable. And there's a lot of anxiety. They actually get to campus. Do they want to still be there or not? We need to know these things. And then we also want to make sure to get our students ready for on campus in person. If they're going to be in a classroom where they can't social distance, they need to wear masks. We need to make sure they know that. Basically give them the rules and make sure that they're ready as well. So that was kind of an idea that I talked with Dr. Fagan about. So she put together some soft, open ways for the school. So one of the options she gave us was option B. And Dr. Fagan, can you go through that option and just kind of explain it? I think it's similar to what Mr. Sitton put forth, but it's a little bit different.
I just wondered, there's two significant changes, I think, between the two. So if you could talk about those changes.
Well, just go through from the beginning, because Mr. Sitton, I tried to write down everything he was saying too, just to make sure I can compare them.
Right. So, it's obviously my responsibility to respond to the board members' needs, whatever their questions are, their concerns, the data they seek, the ideas that they need, and then go to my team and say, okay, so what would be a viable option here, right? Because there's a lot of work that goes into these changes, a lot of work. And we've put a lot of plans together this summer with every different TEA release or governor release or whoever. And so to go to them and say, okay, what's possible here? And Mr. Lopez is referencing some flexibilities that I offered that I thought were possible. Again, an August 11th start for all students online. That would give us all an opportunity to learn the platforms, Schoology, Google Classroom, and Seesaw. And the thing about that I just want to mention is that a lot of the work that we do is a reflection on great feedback we get. So some parents came to me after last spring and said, hey, that was really hard learning like 12 different kinds of software to help my kids. And honestly, I have a 10-year-old and I found it really hard. So I thought, so we all got together and we said, okay, we need to like hone this down, choose a few things and we can really focus on it. And so everyone did. And so this would give us a chance to really learn those platforms so all students would be well equipped. They weren't in the spring because we didn't know we were going to have to. And so parents were left trying to figure out what a Flipgrid was or a Seesaw or these kind of things. So everybody in person on the 11th, everybody online on the 11th, and learn those two things. Also the safety procedures, that'd be something that would be a useful and viable option during that time. Next, on the 17th, all self-contained special education students would be welcome on campus every day for those who chose that option. Everyone else would continue online one more week till August 24th, when what we would call the A group of students, those are the students A through L, would return to campus pre-K through 12. So one of the differences here that we haven't done before is to really slow down and scale in a much more slow, cautious approach, bringing in 50% of our elementary, 50% of our middle and high of those that selected in person. So we're talking about 30-some% of our campus group of students for most campuses, some less, some more, because there's differences in the data a little bit. And then again, all self-contained special education students would stay on campus every day. And then on September 8th, if all goes well, we would bring forward A plus B elementary students, which is what we plan to do initially. So we would have a little bit of time there where we would have an A-B schedule for elementary, which we really didn't prefer to do, but we can do. And then the A-B schedule would continue for all secondary students. They're bigger people, they're bigger campuses, that kind of thing. And then October 12th is the end of our TEA sort of grace period of transition. And so at that point, all pre-K through 8 students who selected in person would return to campus full time, and our high schools they're part of a carve out in the TEA guidance that would remain on AB days until we feel like we could have 100% of those students back, which would be a vaccine and or a 5% or less spread rate. And again, those are numbers that are coming out of experts. They change all the time. Everything changes a lot, like what's a contact changes and how long do you have to quarantine changes. So all these things are subject to change. And I know that's frustrating for everyone, but I think it's important to put that out there that we're responding to the information we're getting.
All right. That's what I have. The concept of the delayed opening is something that I'm in favor of. I want to make sure that we do have a plan in place for in-person opening up, but I think having a delayed opening where we can look at the procedures and the safety, and then we can react if something does happen, and then move at that point. So that's my thought, and I appreciate Dr. Fagan, you and your staff quickly, because I talked with her right after the the Attorney General came down with his order. We talked about options with the softs, and so she put these together pretty quickly, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Scarfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that we do need to have a slowed start and one of the main reasons is, and I don't know what the magic date is, September 8th, I don't know that there's anything more magic to that than August 31st or, September 15th. But I really think though, August 11th is too early. And I think even, I like the idea, and one of the reasons I was going to ask about that, I mentioned it earlier, is I'm concerned that we can get our special needs students on campus because they're in contained, smaller environments. I think they can be kept safe. But, that said, I still think we should hold back another 2 weeks. And I would think that I'm looking at the option A, the option B that we talked about, where it was August 24th to start the rotation, pre-K to 12. I don't know if that's enough time. I really don't know if everybody's up to speed as far as working the platform, being comfortable with doing online, and then injecting people in the classroom that you're going to be teaching. It's not such an easy thing to do, to teach to a group that's streaming in, that's online, as well as students live in the room. It's difficult. And I think to give the teachers in the classrooms who are going to be charged with doing that a little bit more time might be beneficial. I don't know that pushing it back one more week from the 24th is going to be that detrimental. I think really it'd be more beneficial because the staff would have more time to adapt and really see how these things are working with the adults in the buildings, making sure that the protocols we have in place are really what they need to be, that they work, and that we don't need to make some changes. I mean, to me, it's analogous to, we built a car, but we need to, before we sell it to anybody, we need to take it out and test drive it and make sure the back wheels aren't going to fall off. But I just feel more comfortable giving a little bit more time to staff before we start to inject students face-to-face. I know there's a lot of parents who spoke who want August 11th to be the start date. I understand that. And then there's other parents who spoke who they don't know when we need to have students back on campus because they're very fearful of what's going on. But I think we need to be a little bit more definitive when we talk about, like even in that soft option B, where we say September 8th, if all goes well. Well, we need to really define what all goes well means. Is it going to be based on, cases per day, active cases, the positivity rate? Do we use Dr. Bricks, is how you say her name, from the White House? She talks about 5% or less, and I know we mentioned that, but I think for looking at September 8th, what's going to be our reason to, pull the trigger to, okay, let's let more back in. I think let's be a little more definitive. I will say this, looking at, if any of you have gone on the website, and hats off Dr. Fagan and staff, because the information there is great as far as, to me anyway, as a grandparent, looking at students going, the safeguards for the campuses, it looked very comprehensive. You go from elementary to middle to high schools, and how we're going to report on positive cases. One thing that I didn't see, and maybe you can address it, is the metrics we're going to use to actually close a campus. I know what we talked about where we would, sanitize a campus. What's going to make us actually say, you know what, we got to close it down? And I know across the nation, all states and districts are trying to come up with what those right numbers are. But, what are going to be our metrics, and also, again, for going even with this soft option, as Mr. Lopez calls it, if we have all, on August 17th, we go to special education students being there. And I wonder, can we expand that to include students with 504 designations, or is that not possible to have them there? Because I know a lot of parents who have students who have those designations need in person. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about any of that. That's what we need to have happen. So I wonder if we could do that. And then as we move through, like to open up on the 31st or the 24th, whatever that date might be that the board decides, what are going to be our metrics to say, yeah, this is a go? Like things are looking okay, we're comfortable, let's do it. I just would like to have a little bit more clarity to that. And you mentioned it, I don't know if we've actually done it yet. We have safe zones at I'm calling that, for lack of a better term, like if somebody is identified as positive at the day on campus, is there some place that they're going to sit and wait till they're taken away from, taken home or whatever? I didn't know if we've actually gotten to that point yet, but so anyway, those are some of the concerns I have about, when we pull triggers, when the initial opening, and when we bring the next big wave back, that we are a little more definitive. But I really think we do need to slow it, because we need to give staff time to really work the bugs out of the platform side of it, as well as the physical side of things. I would just like to err on the side of being a little more cautious. I know I'm going to upset some parents who said they want to start August 11th. I'm sorry, but I got to kind of go with what I think for my analysis, and that's my opinion, where I stand at that. So thank you.
Mr. Scarfo, just real quick clarification. When you said you want to delay the start, are you talking about online and in person, or just in person?
No, just in person. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I meant the way it lays out, that August 11th, we're online, and we're going forward, and then we get teachers to start, really working through the bugs. That's all I was saying, to give them some more time. I just thought the 31st as opposed to the 24th for the non-special, the regular ed students coming back. I'm good with August 17th. I think that's a great idea that we can do that with our special needs students to be there, because I think they can be protected. I really do, including my grandson. So I have skin in the game as far as that goes. So yeah.
Dr. Fagan, if there's any of that you want to respond to before
Well,
I turn it over to Ms. Dixon.
I was just going to say that Mr. Henry Phipps has been working with our director of nursing on the protocols for the nurses, specifically, and isolation rooms is what they call it, to identify those for each campus, because the unfortunate scenario is there's going to be children who are sick. They may or may not have COVID, right? But unfortunately, the list of symptoms now includes almost everything. And so that's part of the challenge, really. And so the nurses are working through all of those pieces and parts, and I don't have that latest information, but Henry does. Then beyond all of that, I guess my response to, I've heard a lot of this, we need a data, we need a number, and that's really challenging, because aside from the hospitalization rate, everybody that I've spoken to, even at the county, agrees that the positivity rate is inflated or in some cases not inflated. And there's just all kinds of issues with the data because that's what I asked them for. And so it's really difficult for us to sort of, draw a line in the sand on a piece of data that when we know that the data is not very good. So sometimes you have to use quantitative analysis and sometimes you have to use qualitative analysis. And I think that it has to be a blend of both. But as far as closing a school, we are required to report every positive case to the county health department. And just like they did during H1N1, if they feel that there is an outbreak at a particular campus, they will make that decision. So that's actually kind of out of our hands. We would, on the other hand, though, perhaps pivot in a classroom, particularly at the elementary level, to an all online presence if there seemed to be some sort of an exposure for, a good portion of that classroom, 51%, plus the teacher, would just make sense if all those folks are going to go for 10 days for them to just move that whole classroom to an online presence for that period of time. So those are the things we've talked about. I would love, being a former science teacher, to be able to just lay down the, now, if there's 5% we're this, and if there's 6% this, it's just not that clean cut, and no one really offers that much beyond the 5% number, and which we've included in our return to high school group. So, but as far as the iterations and permutations beyond that, it's very challenging for us to establish a data set that's really reliable. And once we lay it out there, I think we really have to be married to it. We can't change it. So we want to make sure that whatever we do put out for that particular use is very reliable and people can depend on it.
All right, Ms. Lamont Dixon, thank you for being patient.
Oh, no problem. I was going to, number one, echo a little bit of what Mr. Scarfo said earlier. I understand that the data is not accurate. I get that. Everything that I've looked at, you can find things supporting both sides of this conversation. But it is challenging with so many unknowns. Because I wonder, look, what are we going to base that on? What is our district standard going to be? What is going to be too much for Humble ISD? And I mean, those are questions that I have. And when you said all is well, I actually wrote that down and underlined it. What is that going to mean? And how are we going to make those types of decisions? So I would like to see a more definitive answer as well for that. I am also for a more delayed start, probably a little bit more than the original motion. And it's because some of the same things that Mr. Scarfo said, so I could really just echo that. It's right now, we do need to see how the platform works. We need to get acclimated. I have two kids in high schools, two different high schools, and one used one platform and another used several different, and it was challenging with all of the different ones. So I would like, my own son to be acclimated and to understand what that looks like, how it works, and to work out all of the kinks to make sure our teachers are prepared. Beyond that, my number one concern outside of our students, and I do believe in student choice, and I believe the parent should have a choice, and I actually believe that we have given parents a choice on how that looks for your family and what works best for your family. But my concern is really the teachers, and so I have some questions, I guess, about what flexibility are we allowing our teachers? What do we have in place? I know the teachers can request, my understanding is they can request plexiglass options like we have here. We talked a little bit about that earlier. I think once we have students on campus, even if the mandate is lifted, I personally believe that we should still require masks. I think that is very important. I don't necessarily believe that students will pass it too much to one another. But my concern, again, it swings back around to our teachers. We have a lot of teachers who are excited and ready to return. We have the data for that. But we also have a great number who have genuine fears and concerns about returning. And I don't think, we can negate those fears. And I don't think we are, but I just want to make sure we are acknowledging that. So I guess for me, some of the things that Mr. Scarfo said are very important to me as well, because it's hard for me to even, with my own kids, to think, okay, well, if the numbers are here, number one, where are those numbers coming from? And then number two, if they are there, whatever that there is, how do I know when it's time to say, okay, we need to move to online rather than face-to-face? I I guess, more definitive answers on those types of things. And I also want to make sure our teachers, are not getting sick at all based on students who are asymptomatic in their classrooms. So that's kind of where I'll start. And then the other point, I think you brought up UV lights. We talked about that a little bit, and we've talked about that in building and planning as well. But you said something about the UV lights being in our newer chillers that were installed since 2006. So does that mean not all of our campuses have UV lights, or do they all have it? Like, not all campuses have it. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Dr. Fagan, would you like to respond to any of that, or?
I don't know that there were any questions in there. I think
Well,
that,
the flexibility, I think, for the teachers. So the teachers that have submitted things to HR, for instance, saying that they need certain circumstances that they're living with in their homes or their own ailments, what are we telling them? Are we encouraging some compassion and grace? I mean, I think that's the question. What flexibility are we allowing the teachers? We've given parents, students choice. I get it. But do our teachers have any choice, the ones that truly, truly have concerns?
so it's my understanding that 100% of the teachers who selected on the survey that they either had concerns they need resolved or they would prefer to be all online have been contacted by a principal or assistant principal at every campus. Now, some didn't answer the phone, those kind of things, but it's my understanding that all have been contacted, and that where we can work through and match, I would really like to be an online teacher and they really need this online section, we have done that. And I think that in the elementary, it was an easier ratio for Lucy's folks, just the nature of what it was. As far as the secondary goes, I think that was a bit more challenging in that some teachers may want to be online, but they teach in a sort of a one-off elective. And if students who take that elective don't want to be online, that's a difficult situation. Although I believe HR and all of our folks have offered wonderful amounts of flexibility in this way. If you're teaching engineering, but you're certified in math, and so you don't have the ability to teach engineering online because that's not a choice, but we have a math section, those conversations have happened where people are trying to work through it together. But at the end of the day, it's true that we have to staff our buildings and we have to offer classes and we have to offer options. And that's why we've worked so hard to bring down the numbers, to a 32.5% or whatever % of the student body on campus on any given day, half of your classroom load. The PPE pieces where we've warmly welcomed the amount that teachers would like to wear, and taken suggestions for things they would like to see in their classrooms. So it's really got to be, in my opinion, it has to be both groups coming together and working out the challenges. It's not always possible to work through it. And we have had a very small percent, Rick and I were talking about that, what he said, less than 1%, I think, that have said, I'm going to go ahead and retire. I'm going to go ahead and resign. And, we have contractual obligations that we have for all of our staff. And technically, if you resign or retire at this point, there would be penalties for that because it's so far into the new year. But we're not doing that. It's a penalty-free zone. Anybody who wants to change or resign or retire, we're working through everybody's individual scenarios. Because just like the students, it is an individual personal decision. And our work here is working with children and providing education. And that's what we'd like to do when it's a safe and appropriate, all of those things. And so we have to have plans in place, whether it's, August 11th or August 25th or October 15th, whatever, there will still be a risk, and so that's why we're working through that with individual staff members so that we can help them with their fears. I'm hopeful that as we come back together and, kind of like graduation, there were some of us that were like, wow, we're gonna have thousands of people together, that could be bad. But we got there and we saw that it was okay. And that we had masks and we were socially distanced and it was safe and it was beautiful weather and a beautiful place and it just went wonderfully. So I'm hopeful that as we continue down this path and And if the board does support the idea of delaying a little bit, not too much so it hurts our students, but a little bit, that teachers will get more and more comfortable like we did with graduation and other events. Because we're all coming out of this time of heavy amounts of quarantine and so, just living differently. And it's a little bit different to get back into the swing of things. So really want to try to support people in doing that in the best way that we can and still have a school district.
Ms. Morrison.
Thank you very much. I just want to say I think it's very, very important that our kids get started on the 11th. Now, I think they should get started online. I think we should. I'm very much a proponent for gradually bringing them back. I like the idea, especially of, and if you consider all the data that's out there, and grant you that data changes every day, okay? But I think it's very important that our special ed children get back into their classrooms. They have missed out on a tremendous amount of instruction. And I think that's very important. So I tend to, I do like the idea, as Mr. Lopez said, I do like the idea of starting in the sense of in class a little later, due to the fact that I think our staff needs to know what they're looking at, okay? And I think having the situations whereby which we have the fewest number of students in the classroom to get it set up is a smarter move. I like the AB, I do. So looking at the option that brings the kiddos back either the 21st, or 24th, 31st, 8th, I just think that, and bringing them back into an AB schedule. So therefore you're knowing the teachers will at least have time to get prepared, and they'll have, a slower movement in. I just think that's a better move. I'm not firm on the 24th or the 31st or the 8th, but I do think we need to do it slower. I do. I think our administration needs to know, because we've given parents options to change, and we need to make sure that we're prepared for those options, that those changes that have been made in those schedules. And changing schedules is not easy. And when you look at our staff, and our staff is prepared to do that, we want to do it right. Even to the point of, I know many of our special ed students, they're nervous. They're nervous about changing schools and making sure that we get them in and get them prepared. So I just think a slower movement in is probably the best movement. So that's all I'm going to say, because I tend to agree with most of you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Mr. Engelage.
Thank you, Mr. President. It seems like an eternity, but I think it was just 2 weeks ago. Is that right, Dr. Fagan, that you came out with your original plan? And then since then, if I recall right, the county judge came up with an order, and then the attorney general had an opinion, and then the governor had a summary. And now we talked to our attorneys earlier this evening, and it's basically down to the 7 of us. Am I close on that? Yeah. So can you summarize for me, because it seems like we're going back to where we were 2 weeks ago. What has changed? I'm hearing that we want to start a little slower, and I'm okay with a little slower, but can you summarize what your plan was from 2 weeks ago, and really kind of what your thought is as far as, because I just need your guidance. I'm not a genius on the 24th or the 31st or the 8th. I don't know. All I know is I'd like to get back started as soon as possible. So if you can summarize what happened 2 weeks ago and kind of where you're at now. Thank you.
So I think we've kind of gone over the history a little bit, but we had put together a plan for August 11th, and then and that plan had changed a lot over the summer with every new piece of TEA guidance. But there came a point where the TEA kind of said, look, it's a local decision. And so we put together a plan, and then our commitment was that we would watch the community health data, and by August 1st, we would make any adjustments to that plan we needed to make, including the potential of a softer start or an AB thing in elementary, all those kind of things that were sort of bubbling around for us. And then we had this wave of intervention from the county and then the attorney general and then the governor. And so, you know, because of that, there was a lot more conversation about this all over the entire Houston area, Harris County, superintendent's parents. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen all of that. And so we wanted to make sure that we were really being thoughtful about this, given all of the changing dynamics and the fact that everybody can agree about one thing, and that is that there's no great data. My conversation with the county judge, she was agreed completely. There's no great data. And so it's very difficult for us to be as assertive as we'd like to be with definitive benchmarks. And so because of that, I think that where I am is that I care deeply about our students and believe very passionately that nobody loves them more than their parents, and that they will make the decisions that are best for them. That's how I feel about my two daughters. And I know that that's how our parents feel. And at the same time, I know that this has thrown our staff for a loop, and it's a very unknown situation. And there's a lot of fear out there, right or wrong. And so that's why I think that where we are today, it makes a lot of sense to take a more cautious, a slow and cautious approach to reopening our schools. I tend to agree with Mr. Lopez's sort of position of where he is on that, because I like the 2 week sort of thing. Because one thing we know about this virus is 2 weeks is kind of the deal, right? Every 2 weeks you learn more. That's about the only thing we can depend on. And so when you look at this, it gives us we change something, we wait 2 weeks. We change something, we wait 2 weeks. And it's kind of a controlled release that gives us a bit of more information as we move forward. It does start all of our students. We still have to have 75,600 minutes. We still have to have 187 contact days for teachers. All those things are still in play, so we have to pay attention to that. But in addition to that, it doesn't change our calendar. Now that could happen by virtue of something else, but you know, a close down or whatever. So, but it keeps all those sort of things intact that people have said they want. At the same time, it starts to slowly reintegrate our students in a way that I believe shows our staff that we do care about them and think they're amazing. And at the same time, listens to our parents and honors their position that their children need to be back in school. And there's really important, real reasons why that's the case. As far as somebody said something about 504 students, that'd be very difficult because most 504 students are scattered all over into all different classes. And so you'd have a student here and a student there. And that'd be very challenging. Whereas self-contained special education students are obviously self-contained together. So that's a much more viable option for bringing back a group. So I guess that's where I am, Mr. Inglagi. It's a daily analysis, and we've done it every day for what 5 months now, and we will continue to. And I believe that a lot of children need to be back at school. I wish the virus would go away. It won't. And so from there, we have to figure out how to exist in what several of you have said, which is the new normal.
Thank you. Ms. Toomey, thank you for your patience.
No worries. I'm okay being at the end here. So contrary to what a lot of people seem to think online, we actually don't speak to each other about these options beforehand. So we truly did come in here tonight not really knowing where each individual person sat. But occasionally we have the same great ideas. So at the same time that Mr. Lopez was contacting Dr. Fagan, I was also contacting her about what are some possibilities of a delayed opening. And I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about sort of my thought process on why I was asking her to come up with what some of you have heard us mentioned as option B, which I know doesn't mean anything to everybody. But I believe that at some time during the school year, there's a high likelihood that an individual student or that a class or a group of students will have to pivot for a short period of time, whether that's a day or 3 or 4 days, to the online learning environment, just because of the nature of the pandemic that we're dealing with. So I believe that a start on August 11th, in keeping with our school calendar, is best. but that an online start for a short period of time will orient all of our students to those online platforms and processes and how to turn in work and how to deal with your teachers and get instruction and all of that, which will then make those various pivots that we may have to have during the school year more viable. I like Dr. Fagan's idea of 2 weeks, which would then put students returning to in some manner on August 24th in a face-to-face setting. But I also agree that I would start our self-contained special needs students on August 17th. Those students are not served well by the online platform. And then one of the concerns that I have not heard sort of discussed today, and Dr. Fagan, you can address this a little bit more, but one of the things that us board members asked for was an individual breakdown by campus of those that chose in-person learning versus online. So while in general, almost 65% of the people chose in person, there are some significant differences when you look at the individual campus level. For example, we have one campus of elementary school students that has chosen 85% in person. That was a red flag to me because I am concerned that if we return at 85% on that particular campus, that we won't be able to provide the social distancing or physical distancing that we need. So when Dr. Fagan brought up the possibility of, for a short period of time, doing an A-B schedule at the elementary level, that was intriguing to me because of that elementary differentiation in the number of, we have some campuses that are 50% and the other one at 85%. So that's something that I think we need to keep in mind. And then returning, so to in keeping with TEA's guidelines, the middle school returning 100% in person after the, what was that? 8-week transition, which would be October 12th. So, which I think it's very similar to Mr. Sitton, what you had proposed, with a couple of minor changes in that delaying the start one more week and then doing the A-B schedule at the elementary level in addition to the middle school and high school. And I think that hits the sweet spot of being able to not increase that divide between our students that could possibly develop from those parents that may or may not be able to attend as diligently during the day. I know many parents that are going to have a very difficult time teaching online, or not teaching, but helping their students achieve in the online platform. So that's where I sit right now. And Dr. Fagan, I guess my question to you then is, based on the student ratio possibilities that we've seen from the choices from the survey, do you feel comfortable with an A-B schedule at the elementary level? I know it's not ideal. We would prefer to have them all in person based off the learning style of that age group, but do you feel that that's a legitimate need?
Well, I think that I agree with you that there are some campuses, and we've actually talked about this. We've studied those numbers, and we were looking at possibilities for bringing down or creating more space, frankly, at a handful of campuses that had pretty strong percentages. And so that is part of the conversation. And our youngest learners, our pre-K, K, and 1 first graders, we're concerned about them being online very long. They've been home a long time. And we've had a lot of conversations with our elementary principals, and they would agree that those little kids, they need to be back. And I'm not discounting the incredible opportunities that some of these parents are providing at home, because they are. I mean, some of them have set up like centers, and I mean, they have knocked it out of the park. So I'm not discounting that at all. But I'm saying for some students, I've had parents say to me, look, I love my children. my husband and I work full time, and I have no idea how to teach my first grader how to read. So they need to be back at school. And I agree with that. I was a high school science teacher, right? And so I would not have wanted to have that experience for my daughter or either one of them. And so we're concerned about those primary age children, and we know they need to be back, which is why we've really worked hard to try to encourage the elementary to all be in person. The data show that those students are less at risk, and that they're really need to be in person for a lot of their learning, socialization. This is when they learn a lot of their coping skills through play that they take with them their entire lives. These are really important learning moments, and we're concerned about the impact. We feel like 5 months is a long time, 6, 7 months, a long time. And so the sooner we can get them back. But that said, I think that Lucy would agree that a couple weeks to really feel stable and for our staff to feel really supported is probably a worthy investment. And our staff are fully committed to when those little children, they want to be with those students. I mean, the response to we want to be with our students at the elementary has been phenomenal, and they want to be there. And I am fully confident that they will work really hard after those couple of weeks to bring those little kids up to speed and get them the things that they need and assess where they are using quality district work. So that we can immediately start and not to overload it either, because when you haven't been doing school for 5 months, the last thing you probably want to do is a whole lot of school. But at the same time, learning through play and enjoying and bringing that on the right way, I feel very confident that our primary age teachers are going to do a great job, and that a couple weeks would be okay for those students to experience that AB. And I know, and I want to be the first to say I understand the hardship we're talking about for families, because that is a challenge. There's a lot of families, who have reached out and said, I work full time, my husband, we've really struggled with this. And I understand, and we want to be there for you. We do. We want to be there for every one of our families and every one of our students.
I took notes.
I guess the challenge I have, as I stated earlier, I want the kids back sooner rather than later. The challenge I have with an AB platform for the elementary kids. One, you've got added stress on the parents. That's a given. We have a lot of elementary kids that their parents are also teachers, and we're asking them to do certain things. So there's a lot of challenges with an AB program for the elementary schools. When you look at the percentages, the 85% to me is an outlier. We have a handful that are in the 75% range, but the vast majority of them are below 70%, with a whole bunch in the 65 and below range. So I think that's doable. But I would have some major heartburn voting for an AB schedule for elementary students. I still like the idea of delaying in person for a week, but again, that's my opinion. So,
Mr. President, would you summarize again? We've talked a lot. Would you summarize your motion in my second?
Yeah. So based on my notes, I think we all agree on an August 11 online start. Question is, do we open, and the motion on the table is to open in person 100% for our elementary, and AB alternating days for middle school and high school
17th.
On the 17th. The idea that Ms. Toomey was just talking about, and I think Ms. Lamont Dixon and maybe even Mr. Lopez down here, was to start the in-person on August 24th.
No.
So an extra week.
You're almost right.
Well, that's what.
That's Lori and I, Ms. Toomey and I, that's our position, but I think Ms. Lamont Dixon and Mr. Scarfo.
Or even later than that.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
31st.
All right, so.
I've got notes.
So the 24th.
Pardon me. I actually didn't give a date.
Right.
Oh, you didn't give a date,
Okay.
Martina? I'm sorry.
All right, so what Ms. Toomey was just talking about is a start on the 24th. But that would also say everybody is on an AB schedule.
So I'm willing to entertain the possibility of not doing the AB schedule at the elementary level, but we would have to have, I'd have to have some additional information or plan from the district for those schools that are 75% and above to be able to provide the correct distancing in the classroom. Because if we've got 85% of our students in there and they're not able to distance properly, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. And I think so if we have some alternative plans for those campuses, then I'd be interested to hear. But if not, then we may need to go to that AB schedule for a short period of time while those kids get acclimated to the distancing process before they return in more full force. So it's a slow phased in process, because those kids will spend that time, just like they spent the first 2 weeks learning the online procedure, they'll spend the next 2 weeks learning the distancing procedure in person, where they may then learn to be able to handle a few more kids in their classroom once we get to that level, if that makes sense. So that's really kind of an open question in my mind.
Ms. Lamont Dixon.
I actually have the same concern as you, Mr. Sitton, on the AB. I like the idea, Ms. Toomey, but my concern really will circle back around to our teachers who have elementary students, and what are they doing with those kids on those off days, unless we're going to allow them to, I don't know, bring them to work somehow. I don't know. Because we already have teachers that have reached out to us who have children that may not even be in elementary, maybe they're in middle school, but that have health concerns. So they've chosen online and they don't really know how to teach all day without being given an option to teach online, but also have students who have health concerns like asthma and respiratory issues. I like it, but I don't see how it would be doable for our teachers. And I'm really concerned about that group, that population, our teacher population. That's all I'll say at this point.
Any more, just Mr. Scarfo?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't talk to Dr. Fagan ahead of time about some other plans, but my thinking was that we needed to delay off of August 11th. I think the 17th, as I said earlier, I like that for special ed students to come back. But I think even the 24th, in my opinion, is too early to have everybody on campus. I don't think it gives staff enough time to really get up to speed. But look, I'm only one voice of 7. But as far as the AB for the elementaries, I share that same concern, because if you look at this chart, I mean, just quickly, there's only about a third that are less than 60% want their students on campus. So my question would be, for the other 2/3, are we really going to be able to practice safety, or are we going to say, well, we're not as concerned at elementary because they're not as vulnerable? I'm not sure I'm crazy about that idea, but as far as the AB goes, I mean, you say have that same issue with middle school and high school for people who are teachers who have students, and maybe if they're in high school, they can stay at home, but even middle school, that's sort of iffy. But I get that. That's a real concern. I just don't know if coming as quickly as the, what did you say, the 17th for everybody. I really like the idea of the 31st to be, all right, we all come back on the rotation, the AB rotation schedule, pre-K to 12. So I want to see a delay. I want to see a delayed start. I don't think September 8th is the magic number, but I think we need to roll this through a little slower, give staff adequate time to really work out the bugs. I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't want to just pivot to one other thing. I know I'm talking about, online, but and Dr. Fagan, what do we have in place to ensure the integrity of online testing? And I know some people have raised it, particularly on the high school level. How are we going to assure parents, and how are we going to ensure that the integrity remains for students taking tests and those kinds of things, where they're not in a classroom, there's nobody proctoring. Have we thought about safeguards because things get competitive, right? And we know that. And how are we going to assure those parents that, hey, you don't have to worry, just because your kid's in school, they're not at a disadvantage to students who are online? I know that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about, but it was something that I had in my notes I wanted to ask. And then I'm just going to assume, though, that we know, because this is something in your good hands, that as far as what we looked at with numbers, we know we have enough staff to service the students who would be on campus, present. Because it's ironic, all the surveying we did, I'm sorry, but because of how we had to word it, we may know how many people want to be on campus versus online, but what we don't know is when they really want to come back. I mean, we can infer, we can draw conclusions, but from that survey data, in my opinion, we really can't, because it didn't ask. It said everybody would come back in person September 8th. We were just asking, when you would want to start the online and coming back. So that's unfortunate, but I mean, we can't survey people again. I mean, we've just surveyed people beyond the pale, and I get it. And what a great return. I mean, we had like almost 60% return on a survey. That's just astounding. And the people who didn't respond, you have to assume, well, you know what, this is where we go. But unfortunately, those surveys really didn't tell us when. But that's just an aside. But I would like to see the rollout slower, and then what the motion currently on the floor is. And also, I'd like you to just quickly or just briefly address the testing online.
So what happens with, there's a lot of different strategies used, but I think that teachers in the spring, high school teachers and particularly those that at Summer Creek and Kingwood that were kind of forced into this space a little bit during Hurricane Harvey, what they do is, I have seen, they adjust the test questions, but they recognize that kids are going to use other resources. And so it becomes, and we do this in person also, but there are times when tests are open notes. There's times when tests aren't open notes. So, but there is software that supports teachers in providing that sort of, you have to answer and it's timed, and so they use different strategies is my answer, no different than teachers do in the classroom. So, and then the STAR test is a whole separate thing, but TEA deals with all that. Yeah.
Mr. Lopez.
Okay, I've got notes. This is what we've agreed, I think, as a board so far to kind of move this thing along.
Mr. Lopez, let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
I'm, from a procedural standpoint, what I'm prepared to do, based on the conversation I'm hearing, we're not going to get consensus on starting on August 17th.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out. Okay. August 11th online. I think we all agree with that. We're getting school open. We're going to keep our calendar, our everything else. I think we all agree August 17th for our SPED kiddos. Right? Self-contained? Okay, we're all there. Here's where the disagreement lies. Mr. Sitton, you want to start on the 17th for our kids and no rotation or AB of our elementary kids. Ms. Toomey and I think on the 24th, and we think that the rotation of the kids is okay. I think we can make an adjustment. If a teacher has kids in elementary school, they can be, an exception to the rule, and because you're not talking about a whole lot of kids there. Mr. Scarfo is okay with the AB rotation for all kids again, but he's on August 31st. So he's delayed a week from where Ms. Toomey and I are. That's where I've taken the notes so far. All right. September 8th, Ms. Toomey and I, now pre-K through 5, they're in school. So you've 2 weeks later, they're in school, and you're still with the AB for the secondary kiddos, 6 through 12. And then October 12th, and I think Mr. Scarfo agrees with me on that as well, Ms. Toomey and I. So you got 3 of us that agree there. October 12th, PK through 8, according to TEA right now, on campus. And then still high school is A and B. And that lasts until, and it will not be changed until either we have a vaccine or you're 5% spread or less. So that's where we are with the notes that I've taken so far. And so need to know where other folks, on that, or if they want to change those general broad strokes.
I think that pretty much captured the conversation, but I think Ms. Lamont Dixon has a few other questions too.
Sure.
Well, first I'd like to add to what you just said. You can put a tally mark for me, right? Okay, so the September 8th comment and the October 12th, I agree with. The August 24th or 31st, I'm somewhere there, but I think, I understand we're not going to be able to have a definitive matrix that we're using, but my concern with having a set date for us to start is if whatever matrix we decide to follow in doubles, are we still going to just say, oh, we're still starting on the 24th? I have a challenge with that. I can live with the AB plan. Don't like it, but if we can offer our teachers some flexibility, I'm definitely open with that. But I definitely also think that 85% route, and you said 75% and up, but I would say probably 70% and up personally, that we really have to address that and how that looks for the students and for the teachers. So that's where I am.
Okay. Are you more August 31st or 24th on the rotation?
I'm probably more August 31st.
Okay.
Ms. Morrison.
Yes, my question is to Dr. Fagan. In talking and listening, considering the 70 to 80% on the elementaries, have we looked into, is there space available to spread for the social distancing?
We've really looked at basically 4 campuses that we're struggling with. And so we've looked at everything from the Rice University model of tents to other alternatives that would give those campuses more spaces. But really where we were sort of coming down and landing on was this idea of an AB start to provide all elementary staff with a little bit more of the social distancing opportunity that affords the middle and high school levels. That just seems like it would give us a little bit more information. And at the same time, if we do need to still expand opportunities as far as space go, we would still be able to contemplate that during this sort of transition period.
Okay. All right. Well, then I would tend to, I would go with the delayed start of the 24th or 31st. If that would help out with the AB, or because the only thing about elementary students, they would get somewhere from 2.5 days inside the building and full-time instruction. That is difficult, I will say that. So, but that's what I've got to say. Okay.
Mr. President, I haven't made my argument yet totally for the 24th. Let me just do that quickly, I promise. It's getting old. I know I'm stretching this out a little bit, but here's my argument on the 24th.
I may vote differently, but you're not going to change my mind, but go ahead.
No, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to put it out there. trying to put it out there, trying to carry some water here. No, my point is this, is that the 24th gives us 2 weeks. It's similar to what Dr. Fagan said. 2 weeks from the beginning online, and then it gives us 2 weeks before we hit September 8th to deal with the AB elementary schedule. So it gives those teachers and kiddos a time to kind of get into the motions with more space and get comfortable. It gives them an extra week. And that's why I like doing the 24th. And it gives them 2 weeks for the parents to, get them used to wearing the mask around the house or whatever whatever the parents want them to do. And so I think it gives another week. That's my point with the 24th. And so, because if you start on the 31st and we go to September 30th, you're only doing AB elementary school level for a week. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I like the idea of giving, I'm thinking about the teachers, of giving them more space in the classroom for 2 weeks to get comfortable and do a little training with the kids, You have less children in the class to get that done. It's a thought process that I have. So there's my argument.
Ms. Lamont Dixon.
I think that was a very good point. So I think I'll move to the 24th as well. I like that. I think that 2 week period before Labor Day is probably important. And one other thing that I meant to mention earlier, I know we don't answer questions for people that speak, but someone mentioned earlier when we had public comments about students who are dealing with abuses and things like that in their homes. And I just wanted to say, I personally have really thought a lot about that. I even know 2 young people in the last 3 weeks that have, even committed suicide. I've spent a lot of time really thinking that through. I think that it is important to make sure, though, that when they return, that we can provide safety for them on campus or mitigate as much as we possibly can. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. Mr. Scarfo.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying I still think the 31st is better to give teachers more time. And if that's the case about the AB for elementary, then you could push that back for elementary by a week to give them 2 weeks and make that September 15th. I tell you though, I'm really concerned about a lot of those elementary buildings, especially some of the older ones, like Hidden Hollow and Foster Elementary. I don't know how no matter when you bring them back, I don't know how you're going to safely have, 75% of the student body in some of those buildings. It may work well at the Groves and Ridge Creek, some of the newer schools, because they have a lot more space. It's going to be really tough at some of these older buildings that are in Humble and Kingwood. And I just don't know how you do that. I don't know that you can space them out enough, because a lot of people want their elementary students back in school. And that's fine. I mean, that's the parent's choice. But I just hope that, and again, I said it really wasn't as much for the students' orientation as in terms of wanting to wait, 3 weeks before you started bringing kids back to campus. It was really for the teachers to be ready and all the bugs worked out and everything was working the way it was planned. As I said earlier, both physically in terms of the buildings itself and what the protocols were, and for the platforms and everybody knowing. So that's where I stand. And like I said, if we need 2 weeks for the AB rotation for elementary to make sure we're in sync before you bring them all back, that's fine too. You can push it back a week, but I still have concerns about all those kiddos being on campus at some point, because whether it's September 8th, the 15th, or whenever, I think it's going to be really tough to deal with them at those older buildings. You're going to have a lot of kids, and I don't know. I'm just really concerned about that, and I don't know that there's any easy answer. So anyway, that's really all that's all I have to say about that.
But we're not going to have an option after October 12th.
Right. Well, and what we're talking about is literally a third of our elementary campuses are at 70% or more that want to come back face to face. It's 11 campuses out of the 29. So we can't penalize the other 2/3. We've got to find other ways to accommodate those kids. And I think I heard Ms. Lamont Dixon talk about that. How do we accommodate that? So if we can come up with that, you know, it's clear that what I initially put out there is not going to happen. So I'm trying to bridge the gaps here. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Toomey.
So, Mr. Scarfo, I completely hear your concern. And to me, it seems that your concern is really it goes along with my concern as well. It's a campus by campus situation. So I feel comfortable if us as a district, from a policy perspective, sends Dr. Fagan and her team away with the marching orders saying that you have the next few weeks, because we plan on bringing our elementary schools back in person on X date to figure out alternatives of how do we properly distance the children. I mean, she just mentioned that the team has been working through several possible iterations of things that they could do. In the meantime, while we're starting with the online start and then the AB schedule, that gives us a few more weeks to figure out that next step and if there's something else we need to get done.
Ms. Lamont Dixon.
Well, to piggyback on what you said, Ms. Toomey, so is it possible then as a board, if we can ask the administration to address the elementary issue and bring it to us at that part at the next board meeting, which is next week?
You're talking about the AB versus.
No, I'm talking about the elementary schools that are 70% or above. How are we going to address that? Can we get that information at the next board meeting?
Well, I'm sure we can, but if we're going to go with the AB schedule for elementary, doesn't that solve the issue?
Well, it only solves it for 2 weeks, correct?
And again, after 2 weeks, if all the testing levels are down and all that, we're in good shape at that point.
Well, but that's the question. What is the matrix? I mean, yes, if they come down, but if we don't have a matrix that we're using, how are we basing that decision?
And again, as far as the data, as we've heard tonight, that the data's all over the map.
Right.
So bottom line is, we need to make a decision as a board, stick with it, move forward, and say, I know Dr. Fagan and her team have contingency plans for everything. And I trust that. I would like to see it. Exactly what happens if we have as it's been mentioned, if we have a case on one campus in one classroom, what happens there? So forth. More of a guardrails and parameters of how we're going to handle each of these different situations. I think the community as a whole would like to see that as well. But yes, we need to make a decision.
So do you want to withdraw and then replace?
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to amend my original motion, and here's what I'm going to propose. We keep our online start at August the 11th. On August 17th, instead of what I had, it'll be all self-contained special ed students on campus every day. Everyone else will continue online. August 24th, which is just an extra week, so we're delaying in person for 2 weeks. August 24th, I can't believe I'm saying this. We're going to go AB. I would recommend we go AB for pre-K all the way through 12th grade.
The exception of teachers that have children?
Yes, with flexibility for teachers who have children. How do we want to word that?
Well, I think that we need to be careful about that, because we have teachers with children in every school. We have high school teachers with elementary children. So you're talking about capacity issues and you're talking about numbers on campus. So we're really getting into a logistical management conversation here regarding childcare. So I would just caution the board on that piece, because I don't know if you're saying you want high school teachers to bring their elementary children to high school campuses.
No. What we're saying, no. In the AB schedule is that you have an AB schedule. The exception to that is if you have a child and you're a teacher,
right?
You need to be on a high school teacher. Your child now it goes every day. Elementary school child goes every day.
And the only caution that I would give to that is, we have many parents in this district that are frontline workers. They're nurses and doctors and essential workers and of all kinds. Not just, I mean, I love our teachers and I want to accommodate our teachers, but we have a lot of people that might need that special accommodation.
This is for 2 weeks, and we're getting our schools started, and we're getting everyone used to this and comfortable with it. And it's only for 2 weeks. That's my point, is that we have teachers that are getting started at all the different levels that have elementary school children. And that's the exception. We don't have to do it. I'm fine with it, but somebody mentioned that it was an issue, and I said, okay, this could be the exception to it. We don't have to. But my point is that it doesn't matter to me. The only reason why I brought it up is because it was in my notes. Yeah. There you go.
So the exception is not going to be part of this motion.
All right.
On September 8th, if Harris County and our community data, and it all is going well and the learning process is happening, our elementary students that are currently in person on the AB schedule will then come back 100% on September 8th. And all secondary students will continue on the AB schedule. Is that what your notes are saying?
Yes, and then on October 12th.
Yes, on
Okay.
October 12th, it'll be the 8 weeks of transition. TEA funding is required. So all students pre-K-8 who selected in-person instruction return to campus. High schools remain on AB days. Still have the vaccine, 5% spread, 100% in person for all students who selected in person all levels. So that is the amended motion. Do I have a second? Yes, ma'am. Please do.
It's a lawyer thing.
Contains special education classes.
They can't hear you.
She doesn't have a mic.
Yeah.
My apologies. Okay. So reading back the motion that Mr. Sitton wishes to make to amend is August 11th, we start with online only, all students. August 17th, the self-contained special education students are joining the are in person. August 24th, AB schedule for all students. September 8th, if it is going well, and we will have board meeting. When's our September board meeting? Is it the 11th or the after Labor Day? Okay, September 8th, if going well, elementary would return 100% with the online option available for families that choose it. Secondary would continue at the AB schedule. October 12th, the pre-K through 8 are all back in person with the online option available for families that choose it. High school would continue at the AB level. And at that point, we have potential for vaccine 5% spread, though that might be a little premature at this stage until we know more in the future months. Is that accurate, Mr. Sitton?
Yes, ma'am. That is the motion or the amended motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second the motion. I need to take a recess though as well. Sorry.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor as to the amendment,
That's right.
solely upon the amendment. Once the board votes on the amendment, then the board would go back to vote on the original motion as amended.
Okay. All right.
The discussion would be solely as to the amendment as proposed.
All right. So, Ms. Lamont Dixon.
So on the October 12th portion of the amended motion, would that also include the community data at that time that you included with the September 8th, like if all goes well? I mean, October 12th, the 8 weeks of transition is based on TEA funding requirement?
Right,
Or
so-
do we have to rely on the state for
So
that?
we get 4 weeks of transition to do what we want. And then you all can vote to give us another 4 weeks, okay? Which I hope that this can be serving as that, or we'll put one on next week. Then that's it. After that, there's no more transition for TEA unless they change their stuff. So that would mean that everybody but the high schools would have to be back that chose in person would have to be back to be funded.
Mr. Scarfo.
Thank you. After that, Dr. Fagan, didn't they say a case-by-case basis they'd consider additional time? I thought that was in the letter that the governor put out Friday. And
If they did, I'm not aware of that. I just know that the commissioner has told us as we sit here today, it's 8 weeks, and then,
okay.
you know.
Yeah, I thought the letter that Mr. Huberty and the governor, all those, that said, well, the case, okay, but anyway, that's not right. But I think though we need to, I'm just not comfortable with if all goes well. Are we talking about, does all go well logistically? Are we going to say that, I'm sorry?
I was just going to answer the question.
Well, let me just add this to it too. You can answer, yeah, both parts. And that part of it, and that, or do we say, and the positivity rate's no higher than it was when we brought kids back on, if it's going to, in this amendment, it's August 24th. Are we going to put anything definitive like that? Because if it's higher, do we say, well, no, we got to kind of slow back down and maybe wait till October 12th? I don't know. But I don't know what that means if all goes well. And like I said, is it logistics or is it that plus comparing to where we are when we bring them back on well, pick a date, 17th or the 20th or the 24th?
Honestly, when I wrote that, it was just for board, like, you all said, just give us some logistical. It wasn't a defined item. And so I guess what my reaction to that is, I think that if we have to close schools down I think we know what all doesn't go well looks like. And so the idea is that we see a continuation of the decreases in hospitalizations. We see a continuation of the decrease in the Harris County epi curve. We see a continuation in the decrease. The 7-day rolling average kind of stuff is not maybe my favorite one because I think it's fraught with issues. But Warren Roan has been working on using our specific zip code data. And I sent you those 2 graphs today. And it's where you take active cases versus total cases, and you want to see the way that it intersects in a positive way. So I would hope to see, I'm a body of evidence kind of gal. I'm not a one indicator kind of gal. So I would say that we would have a number of items that we constantly monitor. And if those continue, now one of them might be up, but the rest are all down. So we may consider that a positive and continue on if things have gone well in our schools. So,
right. Okay, and I get that on the health side, but I think it might be helpful to parents to know, like, here's what we're going to be looking at, and that way there's no guesswork, and people can't say, oh, well, you're kind of moving the goalpost. And I think the other part too is obviously the logistics, how this thing's going, because it may not be so simple. And again, 2/3 of the elementaries, over 60% want to be on campus, which is great. But so if nobody else has a problem with leaving that language the way it is, if all goes well, then okay, that's what we'll do. I just wonder if anyone feels we should make it kind of try to zero in a little bit more on what that looks like, so that people know. I mean, we know. But
Well,
just,
again, we're not talking about board policy. We're talking about dates and how that would work. And I think that the details, what we need to do as a board is come to an agreement on those dates. But, and I want to apologize, we need to recess briefly and meet with legal counsel, and then we'll come back and take up that motion. It is 10:34. Please be patient. We'll reconvene. Thank you for your patience. We do have a motion, amended motion,
Amend, Mr. President.
a motion to amend. Would you read that back to us one more time, please?
So the motion to amend that is on the floor and that has been seconded is August 11th, online only for all students. August 17th, self-contained special education students can start on campus at the family's choice. August 24th, A/B schedules in person for all students with an online option at family choice. September 8th, elementary is 100% on campus if the families so choose, with an online option for those who do not. Secondary is A/B schedule. October 12th, all are back online pre-K through 8 with an online option for families who so choose. High school remains at the A/B schedule.
No, that would be in person.
In person, I apologize, yes.
Okay. We have an amended motion.
A motion.
A motion to amend, and it's been seconded. Do we have any discussion before we vote on this?
I have one more question.
Ms. Lamont Dixon.
I think. Dr. Fagan, do you believe that there is any way to accommodate the elementary students on campus without the AB option?
Well, I mean, there is, but it would be full classrooms. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, and is that when you're either going to have them on campus or you're going to have half of them on campus. So, I mean, that's why initially our proposal was to go with all the elementary in person, because we believe that is best for them, and that's what we wanted to do. However, and frankly, a lot of the staff have been very supportive, I guess I would say, of that approach. So Lucy, if you want to say anything, at the podium, since you've been working, Lucy's been working one-on-one with every single campus, and she's been working one-on-one with some of our teachers who have had concerns. So
I just have to say, I've been talking to the elementary principals, in our group, and we've never had this much attention at a board meeting in elementary. We don't know what to do with ourselves. But what I think we are working on is you have to think of an elementary classroom as a family. So we become a family and we stay together. And we stay together in everything we do in and around the building. I think what we're worried about with the 75 to 80% campuses is the physical distancing ability in and around the campus. As we go to art, as we go to music, as we do PE, recess, we're all sharing those spaces. So we're just gonna have to be really tight on our schedules and stay together as a family and educate our students and really work out minute details with our staff about what that looks like. So I wouldn't say that it's not gonna be a smaller class size. We are working at looking at our online learning classrooms and increasing them a little bit without, infringing upon the quality of that education, but then allowing those just a little bit, 1 or 2 less kids in a face-to-face classroom helps a lot.
Well, is it also possible for teachers to move rather than students? And the reason I'm circling back to the AB, as an educator, I'm thinking when I had children in elementary school, if I'm teaching, or no matter what my job is, it would be almost impossible for me to figure that out. So, you know, and that it'll be very challenging for, I think, most elementary parents. So are any of those concerns being, well, when I say concerns, can it be a situation where teachers are moving rather than students, you know, to keep the students in a more safe environment
It is
with their
a
family?
possibility, right? And we have talked extensively about that. We balance, again, the quality of the education. So sometimes the learning environment has resources in it, has, anchor charts in it. And so it's versus putting all those things on a cart, if you will, and that teacher moving. We do have campuses that have thought through that, and that is the best plan for their campus. Fall Creek is one, that the teachers are moving in that. So it's really campus by campus, but we absolutely could continue to explore that.
Well, and also, is there a way to notify those parents on those campuses? Because that way, if I have a child that's planning to be on a campus that's 75% face-to-face, if I'm uncomfortable with that, I do have an opportunity to change my decision.
Kind of an opportunity to educate
That's right.
families on what their campus learning environment is
Right.
going
I
to
think
look
that
like.
I personally think that would be very important.
I believe that Lucy has planned that. You have a virtual orientation for every elementary before what date?
By the 7th.
Okay. So we have a lot of these things already in place.
And some campuses have already had them because they were getting questions. And based on those questions, the principal went ahead and said, let's provide that opportunity to give them and to ask questions and give them, paint that picture of what online learning looks like, because they need to know that before making that decision as well.
Okay.
And then what does face-to-face look like?
So, Mr. President, I don't know if we, my
so-
thought is to amend the amendment,
Yeah,
but we'll see. I'll be
so
quiet now.
If I'm understanding correctly, if we want to change the AB to all in on the elementaries, we would need to vote on the amendment first.
So we have two options, Mr. President. We can vote on the amendment as proposed and seconded and have it fail if that's the board's desire to do that, and then try another amendment, or we can amend the amendment. We would then have to approve the amendment to the amendment, then the amendment, I swear to God, and then the original motion.
Okay, all right.
As amended twice.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So,
Not to lawyer this a little too much.
all right. Okay. All right. So we are going to vote on the amendment
As proposed.
as
and
proposed and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment as was proposed, voted on, and
not
seconded.
changed.
We're gonna, So,
I barely do, Miss Toomey. I mean,
so all those opposed. Okay, so the amendment is voted down. Now,
we return to the original motion. If there is a desire to amend the original motion.
I move to amend the original motion and to make it the same as the previous motion, save for
August 24th.
August 24th, all elementary kids PK through 5, but AB rotation for the remainder of the kids.
all right, we have a motion and we have a second. Do I have any discussion on this? Not seeing any. Yes, ma'am.
Sped.
Yeah, who's selected in person? There's still the online option.
AB secondary 6 through 12. And then the only change then would be October 12th, PK through 8 on campus, high school still AB. So September 8th basically goes away.
That's correct. Yeah, because your elementary are all in. Okay. All right. Any more discussion? All right. All those in favor of the new amendment to the original motion, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? 6-1. Now,
Mr. President, we return to the original motion as amended and take a vote on the original motion as amended.
now we will look at the original motion as amended. Do I have to,
I would call for, it's already been.
it's already been moved and seconded, right?
Go straight to the
All
vote
right.
unless there's further
So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes as presented with amendment, 6-1. All right. And I believe that is it. That is correct. It is 10:52. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your patience.